1 minute to air. We are now streaming.
Recording in progress.
Waiting for the clock to strike 7 o'clock. Good evening, everyone. So glad to see you all here tonight. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. We would like to call the Durham City Council meeting to order for the 16th day of October 2023 at 7 p.m. here. We want to welcome all of you who have joined us in person, as well as those of you who are joining us remotely as well. Please join me in a moment of silent meditation. Thank you so much. I now invite Councilwoman Freeman to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
It's our practice to stand and salute the flag. Join us.
Thank you. At this time, we will recognize our clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor O'Neill. Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
I'm here.
Councilmember Caballero.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Present.
Councilmember Holsey-Hyman.
Present.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Williams.
I'm here.
Thank you.
All right, we will now turn to our ceremonial items. We have 4 proclamations for tonight's meeting, and we will start first with the National Arts and Humanities Month proclamation, which will be read by Mayor Pro Tem. That'll be followed by the Eagles HBCU National Tennis Championship Month proclamation, which will be brought to us by Councilwoman Freeman. That will be followed by Councilman Williams, who will bring to us the Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I will talk to you about our proclamation for Diligence Month in that order.
My thanks to Her Honor the Mayor for this great privilege of reading this proclamation. Good evening to my honorable colleagues, those in the chamber and those watching on whatever platform you may be watching. A proclamation in honor of Arts and Humanities Month, and I'm very pleased to have our friend and colleague Sherry DeVries here to receive the proclamation, and I'll invite her to have a few words after the proclamation is read. Proclamation. The arts and humanity help diverse communities across the United States explore and share their history and culture. And whereas the arts and humanities embody much of the accumulated wisdom, intellect, and imagination of humankind, and whereas the arts and humanities enhance and enrich the lives of everyone, and whereas the arts and humanities embody so much of the accumulated wisdom, intellect, and imagination of humankind, enhance and enrich the lives of everyone in America, and whereas, despite significant losses due to the coronavirus pandemic, the creative industries remain among the most vital sectors of the American economy, providing new opportunities within their own industry and across sectors. And whereas the nation's art and culture sector, nonprofit, commercial, education is an $877 billion industry that supports 4.6 million jobs, representing 4.2% of the nation's economy. Now, therefore, I, Elaine M. O'Neill, Mayor of the City of Durham, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the month of October as National Arts and Humanities Month in Durham, and hereby urge all residents upon our community members to celebrate and promote the arts in Durham. Witness my hand and the corporate seal of the City of Durham, North Carolina, this, the 16th day of October 2023, Elaine M. O'Neill, Mayor.
Good evening, and thank you, Mayor O'Neill and Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, City Council members. Thank you for this opportunity to recognize the importance of arts and humanities in our communities and in our lives. We'll have two items this evening in our presentation. I'll give a few data points from the recently released Arts and Economic Prosperity 6 study, which was just released last Thursday, to talk about the economic impact of arts and culture right here in Durham. And then following that, we'll hear from our Piedmont laureate, Dasan Ahanu. So last week, we found out that here in Durham, the nonprofit arts and cultural sector contributed $233,059,155 to our economy here in Durham in 2022. It supported 3,246 jobs, provided $135,000 in personal income to our residents, and contributed over $28 million in local, state, and federal tax revenue. We are so excited about the increasing role of arts and culture in our economic life, but also thrilled about the importance of arts and culture in making our city and our communities better places to live and more vibrant for our families and friends and associates. We're very excited to be a part of bringing this data to you. The Durham Arts Council worked on conducting this study over the past year, and we had 91 arts and cultural nonprofits participate. So we've provided this information to our city council members and the mayor, and thank you all so much, and please continue to support arts and culture in Durham. And now I am so proud to introduce Dasan Ahanu. He is an artist, educator, scholar, and cultural organizer, serving as this year's Piedmont laureate. I cannot do justice to his many accomplishments, and they are provided for you in the biography with his book that he is providing for you this evening. His most recent book, his fifth book, A Brilliant, Uncertain Rebellion. We celebrate his accomplishments. Please welcome Dasan.
A room full of brokenness, stuck on my every word, and at that time, I learned how to superglue hope. A room full of brokenness, together stuck on my words, the moment I understood a stained glass window. There's an opportunity through the arts to be able to engage people's hearts, minds, and souls. It opened up doors for me, created a life, but more than anything, it has created an opportunity for the stories that do not often get told of people who are pushed out of center to be lifted up, and for everyone to be reminded the breadth, depth, and beauty of our communities. And I'm glad that we're acknowledging the power of arts, especially in a culturally rich city like Durham. Thank you. Good to see you.
Good evening. And I will be joined by the coach, Sophia Rachi, for the proclamation for the Eagles HBCU National Tennis Championship Month. Whereas the City of Durham is proud to congratulate North Carolina Central University's women's tennis team as the 2023 HBCU National Tennis Champions. And whereas the North Carolina Central University remains a leading institution of higher education dedicated to excellence in the classroom, community, and athletic competition. And whereas the Eagles, coached by Sophia Rachi and Gabriel Cucalone, exhibited extraordinary leadership and commitment to success. And whereas the City of Durham recognizes players Kennedy Hill, captain, Alejandra Hilgado Vega, Jade Houston, Candace Beriner, Isabel Exted, Lafiao, Patrice Palencia, and Maria Pizzero Martin for their extraordinary effort and determination throughout the tournament and commends them on a job well done. Now, therefore, I, Elaine M. O'Neill, Mayor of the City of Durham, North Carolina, do hereby declare the month of October as the Eagles HBCU National Tennis Championship Month. And Durham, and hereby urge all residents to take note of this observance. Witness my hand in the corporate seal of the City of Durham, North Carolina, this, the 16th day of October 2023.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I have my speech written down. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sophia Rachi, and I'm the head women's tennis coach at North Carolina Central University. I would like to start off by saying how grateful I and the entire NCCU women's tennis team is to be here today and to receive this prestigious recognition. On behalf of the NCCU women's tennis program, I would like to extend my gratitude to Mayor O'Neill and the entire Durham City Council for honoring us. Our NCCU Chancellor, Dr. Aking Lie, our Director of Athletics, Dr. Perkins, and the entire NCCU athletic staff. Dr. Kendra Green, Chief of Staff, Dr. Edmonds, Coach Curtis Lawson, Coach John McLean, and Coach Gabriel Cucalone, who without them, we would not be here today. I would like to take a moment to recognize my athletes, the 8 wonderful ladies who form a part of NCCU women's tennis, and all the hard work that they put in. They come from all over the world and all have one common goal: to make history at NCCU. I'm so proud to be their coach, and it is an honor for me to be and work with them every single day. These 8 ladies have worked so incredibly hard throughout this entire year, and I'm so immensely proud and happy that their hard work is paying off. I'm so excited to see what the future holds for us, but I do know that we will always remain united as a team and, most importantly, as a family. In addition to this, I would like to thank Dr. Perkins and the entire NCCU athletic department who welcomed me with open arms and have always believed in me and my vision as a coach. They have guided me to be the coach that I am today, and I never stop learning from them. I'm a proud Eagle, and I am blessed beyond belief to be a part of such an incredible team. It is an absolute honor to be here today, and I thank God every day for the opportunity to be a part of this team every day. Thank you again, Mayor O'Neill and the entire Durham City Council for taking the time to honor our program. We are so incredibly grateful for this moment. Thank you.
Chancellor, we wanted to call Coach, if you'd like to be able to say some words as well, you're free to, Coach Lawson, if you'd like to. And then we want to make sure that we get pictures of the team right here in front, okay?
I just would very quickly like to echo Coach Rachi's words, and I would say that she is a true reflection of the future of NCCU athletics. Just a quick history fact, she became this year, when we hired her as our new women's head coach, the youngest head coach to date. And so she has stepped up, has stepped in, and just done a fabulous job, and we're so incredibly proud of her. We know that NCCU athletics, our tennis program in particular, is going to continue to soar high, so go Eagles. And we will take you up. If we can get a picture up front, that would be just outstanding. Thank you.
Come on up, Chancellor. Come on, all you. I'm standing here in heels, sir.
Diana.
Look at that, West.
There you go. Do you know Damien Talley or the group that's coming with this? Oh, okay, cool. Good deal, good deal. Glad you're here. All right, we'll give them just a few moments. Just a little brief history. I was recruited to NCCU on a tennis scholarship, but I chose the band instead. So I had Coach Nas. Coach Nas. Yeah, cool deal. Thank you all so much. Thank you. All right, I have the honor of reading a proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I'm joined by Mr. Damien Talley, whom I'll give a few words in just a moment. And the proclamation reads, whereas the safety, security, physical, and emotional well-being of our neighbors affect the lives of everyone in our community, We recognize that domestic violence takes a variety of forms and believe all individuals have the right to live their best and fullest lives free of violence and fear. Whereas we recognize that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men report experiencing physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetimes, according to the National Centers for Disease Control, domestic violence is a serious, preventable public health concern involving the manipulation of power and control, including willful intimidation, physical and sexual assault, emotional and financial abuse, and other abusive behaviors. And whereas anyone can be a victim of an intimate partner, their violence, regardless of gender, age, race, socioeconomic status, ability, or relationship choice. We believe that everyone deserves a life free of violence, regardless of gender identification, ethnicity, ability, age, religion, or social status. Whereas we recognize that the crime of domestic violence impacts victims, families, and society and can lead to long-term health problems, missed days of work and loss of employment, psychological distress, family instability, homelessness, and increased risk for future violence. And whereas ending domestic violence starts with awareness and education, changing social norms about gender and violence, and mobilizing our communities. We urge all who engage with youth to teach and model respect, consent, and healthy relationships. We encourage residents to ensure an inclusive environment that supports survivors of domestic violence and sustains their efforts to rebuild their lives without violence in Durham. We are strongly committed to working with all partners so that every individual can access appropriate and affirming resources to address and end violence in our communities. Now, therefore, I, Elaine M. O'Neill, Mayor of the City of Durham, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2023 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Durham and commit to working with all partners so that everyone can access appropriate and affirming resources to address and end violence in our community. Witness my hand and the corporate seal of the City of Durham the 16th day of October 2023, Elaine M. O'Neill. And I will provide moments of remarks to Damian Talley. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Mayor O'Neill and distinguished members of Durham City Council for this acknowledgement of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. As stated, domestic violence is a public health issue which destroys lives and does not discriminate gender identity, race, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic status. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 9 men will experience domestic violence in their lives. This is a statistic that Durham Crisis Response Center is committed to working against. We are grateful to the various agencies in the City of Durham which partner with us and army out difficult and necessary work until victims are out of domestic violence situations. I am proud to know that as a community, we are committed to work tirelessly to educate about domestic violence, to draw awareness, advocate for victims, and ensure that resources are available for victims, survivors, and their families. Thank you all.
Good evening again, everyone. I believe that we're coming about to the end of the year. I believe this may be the next to the last time that we will have a proclamation. This month is Diligence Month. Whereas our daily lives are filled with news regarding inequity, discrimination, violence, and misinformation, often causing feelings of self-doubt, uncertainty, fear, and whereas the many daily acts of upholding our values, moments of tenacity, self-control, and shared set priorities of community members go unnoticed and not celebrated. And whereas by recognizing the need to honor work, be accountable, and be persistent with our efforts, all members of our community will be made aware of the importance of practicing diligence. And whereas the purpose of Diligence Month is to remember the importance of consistently showing effort, even in adversity. We all experience hardships, and how we respond is what dictates our character. And whereas when we remain relentless in our optimism, we can better recognize growth and conceptualize the gap and opportunities for the advancement of all people. And whereas we are all extraordinary or extraordinary, and our different paths allow us to show our strength and courage in numerous ways. And whereas we should be thoughtful and considerate of ourselves and others when making decisions, we should be mindful doing our day-to-day activities and be courageous and authentic to ourselves. So we are striving for greatness and creating opportunities that enable Durham to be a welcoming, inclusive, kind, safer, and more secure place to live, work, and play. And whereas the city of Durham honors those who positively impact our community and world. Now, therefore, I, Elaine M. O'Neill, Mayor of the greatest city in the world, Durham, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2023 as Diligence Month in Durham, and hereby urge all residents to work on mindfulness, self-control, and remain optimistic while always spreading respect, generosity, and consideration of others. Witness my hand and the corporate seal of the city of Durham, this day, the 16th day of October 2023, Diligence Month. We will now turn to my colleagues for announcements. I'll look to my right first, or left first, because I see Councilman Williams' hand go up first. So, Councilman Williams.
Yes, before they leave the room, I wanted to shout out a very successful event that was held this week, the Black Founders Exchange, in partnership with Google, and Jess Ava Hart played a very vital role in that, as she's leaving the audience right now. But thank you for your service. Thank you for highlighting Black businesses, minority-owned businesses, in partnership with Google. We had about 10, I believe, very amazing and successful entrepreneurs who were doing a pitch. And it was, I don't want to shout out just one because they were all amazing, but I just wanted to highlight that worked. And it was really an honor for Durham to host this event for the 8th year in a row, where Google recognizes the talent here in Durham and see it fit as a city worth, really investing in. So thank you for that work. And also, I'm sure this will be spoken about this weekend. Hillside High School homecoming was here, and I know you saw some news, but I just want to highlight the positivity. This was a weekend where people, family, friends, neighbors, communities came together, and we really showed together what the Bull City culture is all about. And that's what I want us to remember this weekend about the diligence, as the mayor just talked about, of how we can come together and just have a really good time. And that's what we should remember it as. So happy homecoming, Hillside. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Williams. Any other announcements to my left? To my right. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening to you again, to my honorable colleagues all in the chamber. I want to thank Councilmember Williams and fully associate myself with his remarks about Hillside and focusing on the positive, and wish them a happy homecoming as well. Madam Mayor, tonight is the first time our council is meeting in public since the horrific events that occurred in Israel just a couple of weeks ago. Tonight, this is Durham. We will, of course, at some point engage in politics, but tonight I just want to focus on our shared humanity and our common heartbeat. I want to join with millions of voices from heads of state to heads of neighborhood associations in utterly and unequivocally condemning the barbarism that was visited upon the state of Israel last week without qualification, without hesitation. But tonight I want to focus on 3 different constituencies here in Durham because we're a local elected group. Tonight there are Jewish citizens and residents of Durham who do not know where family members are, who are mourning the death of family members and children. They are our neighbors and they are our friends. Please call on them and check on them. Tonight, there are Palestinian residents and members of our community who do not know where their family members are, who are mourning death as well. They are our neighbors and they are our friends. Please call on them and check on them. Tonight, United States Aircraft Carrier Strike Group, led by the Gerald R. Ford, is in the Mediterranean, and another carrier strike group is on its way, led by the Eisenhower. There are Durham residents on both of those aircraft carriers. There are sailors and aviators and Marines who call Durham home, who are on those vessels tonight. Call on their families and check on them. I do not know how this will end. That's not our role as a city council. But I do know, however it will end, the only way we will get to a positive ending is together, looking out for each other, loving each other, and lifting each other up. Tonight, I ask those that are people of faith to pray for all of those that have been impacted, and for those who are not. This region of the world holds great value archaeologically and culturally and just fascinates all of us. Let us pull for hope and light in that region of the world. May God bless Durham. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you so much for your comments, and I associate myself with those comments. You will see me have a mask on tonight. I brought a little cough back, so I do not want to infect anybody up here. So no COVID, but you'll see me kind of taking it on and off, so please bear with me as we try to conduct this meeting with that in mind. I only have 2 announcements. Actually, I want to mention first, National Elaine's Day. There is really a National Elaine Day. It is National Elaine Day, and it's annually celebrated on October 16th. It raises a salute to every Elaine around the world and recognizes their uniqueness. So happy Elaine's Day to you all. So my cousin said that to me this morning. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a joke, but it's really real. So I know a couple of other Elaines, so happy Elaine's Day to you all. I also want to say congratulations to my high school. There's only one Hillside High School, and it is homecoming week. I'm a proud 1980 graduate of Hillside High. We had a great parade yesterday. We did have an incident on yesterday that you all saw on the news, and fortunately no one was hurt, but it was a really, really scary moment. But thank God we all made it through, and it was a great parade, lots of cars, lots of floats, so just a great time. So to the Hillside Hornets over on Fayetteville Street and all around this great city and great nation, congratulations on what's going to be a great homecoming week. And with that, we will now turn to our priority items by our city manager.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the Durham City Council. I have one agenda item, priority item for you this evening, and it is agenda item number 12. It is construction contract with Penum Construction, Inc. for downtown trash compactor project at 315 Holland Street. This item is being referred back to the General Services Department. That is all I have for you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager Page. I now turn to our City Attorney to see if she has any priority items this evening.
Good evening, Mayor O'Neill, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, and members of the City Council. The City Attorney's Office has no priority items tonight.
Thank you, Attorney Rayburg. We now turn to our City Clerk Schreiber to see if you have any priority items for us this evening.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The City Clerk's office doesn't have any priority items this evening.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Our next order of business is the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of items that the council has previously considered in a work session. All items on the consent agenda may be approved by a single vote of the council. Items may be removed from the consent agenda by a council member or a member of the public, and those items will be considered separately at the end of the meeting tonight. I will now read the entire agenda into the record, beginning with the consent agenda. Item number 1 is the Durham City County Environmental Affairs Board appointment. Number 2, the Durham Convention and Visitors Bureau Discover Durham appointment. Item 4, Human Relations Commission appointments. Number 5 is approval of city council minutes. Number 7 is the new position classification associate attorney. Number 6 is the Durham Comprehensive Plan 2023. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. That's number 8. It says number 8. Is it like, yeah. Durham Comprehensive Plan 2023. Item 9 is the service subscription agreement with Sprout Social Inc. for social media management platform. Item 10 is the increase in authority for construction contract with Bar Construction Company, Inc. for athletic court renovations, Piney Wood Park pickleball project. Item 11 is contract amendment number 1 for geotechnical engineering and materials testing services with A1 Consulting, Inc. for the Public Works Operations Center project. Item 14, proposed lease with Beyond Da Corners LLC doing business as Me Barrio Nutrition at the Morgan Rigsby Parking Garage, Unit 103. Item 15 is the consultant contract for classification and compensation study. 16 is the first amendment to contract with SHI International Corp. for Microsoft Enterprise Software Licensing Agreement. Item 12 is being referred back to the General Services Department. It is construction contract with Penam Construction, Inc. for downtown trash compactor project at 315 Holland Street. On our general business agenda, public hearings, item 17 is the Unified Development Ordinance Text Amendment, changes related to the comprehensive plan. Item 18 is the zoning map change, Aventon Harris Farms. Item 19 is a zoning map change, Hillsborough Road, Coca-Cola bottling site. Item 20 is the zoning map change, 2610 South Miami Boulevard, and now I'm ready to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. I do not believe that we had any.
Madam Mayor, if I could pull item 8, I think.
Item 8?
Yes.
Item 8 has been pulled by Councilwoman Freeman, and that is the Durham Comprehensive Plan. All right. And now we are ready to entertain a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
Been moved by Councilwoman Freeman. It's been seconded by Councilman Williams. Madam Clerk, if you will open the vote. It's not happening. Our clickers are not working.
Are they on?
They don't look like they're on, though. Let's see if they're on. Okay, that might will help.
It says please sign in. Netflix password.
Sign in and press.
Madam
it.
Mayor, can we do a hand vote until?
Yes, we
get your
can. All right. All
clickers
those would
working?
just raise your, all those in favor, if you raise your hand, right hand. All those opposed having the same right. All right, seeing none, that motion passes unanimously. We are now down to our business agenda, which is, we will begin our public hearings with item number 17, which is the Unified Development Ordinance Text Amendment changes related to the comprehensive plan. And Attorney Rayburn, I just want you to, if you will clarify whether this will be considered a non-zoning hearing or a zoning public hearing.
It's amendments of the Unified Development Ordinance, so they are zoning public hearings, but they're not related to a particular property. They're,
Okay, so we will follow the script that's outlined for.
I would, yes.
Okay, as a zoning public hearing. So that means that for item 17, we will first receive our staff report.
Madam Mayor, this item needs to be considered after the comprehensive plan. So if possible, we'd ask that you either move the comprehensive plan in front of this or move this to behind the comprehensive plan.
Thank you so much. So we will go to the other zoning map changes and then come back to the pooled item, and then would that be the order that you would suggest, council? Or go ahead and do number 8 and then do the pool item first? I'm going to ask the attorney to weigh in.
It's at your election as the chair, Madam Mayor, but if you want to go ahead and do the pooled item, since that's the item that the planning department needs to be heard.
Okay. All right, we'll start with item 8, which was pulled by City Council, Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you. And I received an email this morning, and I'm just following up. I did want to ask a couple questions posed by Ms. Pam Andrews around the few major concerns. So the first one is what will happen with the properties that touch up against the critical watershed?
Do you, hold on one second. I don't know what do you know what properties you're talking about?
Councilmember Freeman, was there specific properties that she brought up, or was it just in general properties that are next to the critical watershed?
The critical watersheds near Kemp Road.
Yes, so
Specifically, it is a letter she dated August 2nd, 2023, to the planning director, Sarah Young.
So, good evening, Sarah Young. The critical watershed regulations apply regardless of the comprehensive plan, so they are in effect, they are a zoning overlay, and they continue with the property regardless of any place type map designation or policies in the comprehensive plan.
Okay. And then on number 2, what will the lack of a fire station promised in the CIP for 2026? Will it move up, or will it just continue to stay for 2026?
certainly the CIP is independent of the comprehensive plan, and it's certainly up to the city administration and the council as to what projects are in the CIP and what year. If this is in reference to the Southeast Future Growth Area where we recommended some changes, there is an area there that the fire department had already indicated to us that they can serve with their existing stations, so that's why it was recommended to be removed. The other areas that are outside of the current response time are still within the future growth area.
And that response time, is that 7 minutes or is it 6?
Don't know for sure what whatever fire uses as their standard is the one that we relied on.
And then just around Kemp Road project that bisects Lick Creek, has there been any response to the lawsuit that was initiated by I think it's the environmental lawsuit by the South Development for Southeast Durham? So until the new parcels are built out?
The planning department does not have information on that.
Okay. Has there been another presentation with the Oak Grove Ruritan Club?
No, we haven't done any more presentations after the public hearing.
And you did say that Kemp Road was in this version.
Yes, so in this version, the staff recommendation is to remove a portion of the Southeast Future Growth Area, which includes the zoning case that was known as Kemp Road, something, because of, we now have better information about fire response for that area. So that does not mean the council has to approve that case if and when it comes back to you.
And just specifically, there are a number of cases that are coming up. It looks like Perry Farm, formerly Kemp Road Division, with 665 units up against the critical watershed boundary. Olive Branch Reserve North Assemblage, 280 units. Sharon Road Apartments, 260 units. Howard's Properties, 650 units, and all of these are up against the critical watershed. And then additionally, Virgil Road, 362 units. That sounds about right?
Does sound about right.
And I really think that it's important to state this because as we move forward with this comprehensive plan, if the thought is that we're just going to densify in a critical watershed, then there needs to be a huge amount of infrastructure put in place to prevent what we've been seeing for folks who live in the county where they're on well and septic. And I'm not sure I've heard a response around that, whether it's from our capital improvement plan or in our solid waste. Like, there needs to be some response to the folks who live in the county who have been expressing the issue of how their homes are being impacted by our growth. And I don't feel like it's responsible to not have that conversation before moving this comp plan forward. But it doesn't feel like staff nor the council is responsive, and I want to make sure that that's on the record. Thank you.
Councilman Williams.
Thank you. I just wanted to clearly understand there were five locations that were being considered, right? That we were considering being in or out. Could you just clearly state what the status of each is?
Yeah, I can definitely summarize the final map changes. So based on what we heard at the August 31st public hearing and then comments from elected officials, we changed our staff recommendation a little bit specifically for the map, because you asked about the map. We're recommending that Farrington Mill Road and Patterson Road area be added back into the urban growth boundary. We originally recommended removing these areas because of issues with sewer service, but since then it appears that the private developers have worked out ways to serve those areas that would not be a cost to the city and county. But as a caveat to that, we recommend designating those specific areas, Farrington Mill Road, Patterson Road, as future growth areas, with a caveat that the entire area be served with sewer in the future, so that specifically to address concerns that we heard was brought up from the Nunn family, so that one developer is not just benefiting, that they can serve the whole area. So those other areas that we talked about before, Cheek, Redwood, Hamlin, Arrowhead, we're still not recommending including those. Does that help?
And there was one where there was some confusion on whether, I think it was the Kemp Road one, about the line went through it or something?
So for that one, so we have the Southeast Future Growth Area and earlier versions of the map. We had, I think, all of east of Kemp Road was included as a future growth area. I think even at the public hearing, our staff recommendation, we have excluded a northwest portion of that section that can be served by fire service. We got new information later.
So the line no longer goes through the property?
No.
Okay. So it's considered in. Okay, and I'm sorry for having you repeat yourself. The other, I think it was Arrowhead and something else that was.
Yeah, so the areas we are not recommending be included in the urban growth boundary still, Cheek, Redwood, Hamlin, Arrowhead.
Okay. Yeah. But what's considered in right now can be served by our emergency services.
For those specific areas, so Farrington Road and Patterson that we are recommending include in the future growth area. So we're flagging that as it does need sewer service for future development in those areas.
As far as sewer, yeah, and all,
Yeah. Emergency services are good there.
and emergency services as well. All right, and that is scientifically proven that the department has, so we can serve that right now.
Yep, that's the information we got from our departments.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Javier?
Thank you. And then with the future growth area, we are tying it to just the entire comp plan will have a biannual review so that we can continue making assessments based on some of the concerns we've heard from neighbors and council members and others.
Yes, we made a policy edit.
I saw that in the text amendment that we're going to be, but I just wanted to make sure that I was interpreting that correctly.
Yes, that'll be a part of our.
And then would that process kind of follow what we do with just other text amendments? It goes to JCCPC, Joint City County Planning, and then goes to each respective board?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all, Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I firstly just want to congratulate the staff and thank you for what has been really a Herculean task. Since 2005, we haven't had a new comprehensive plan, I think. We're about to make history tonight. And respectfully, all of the questions, all of the concerns that have been echoed in here and by residents, we've had ample and repeated opportunities and forums to thrash these things out and hear these things. I'm particularly proud of this council because this council has been, since I've been on council, more responsive to folk who don't even vote for us, who are not actually within our constituency, but because of our outreach efforts, because of our muscularized equity plan, we've listened to everybody on this plan. And I also would just remind folk that the comprehensive plan is a plan. It does not have the force of law. It's aspirational. As soon as the ink dries on this comprehensive plan, the facts on the ground will change. So as a council, it still behooves us, and we're beholden and we're obligated to look at facts on a case-by-case basis. We talk about what's going to happen on the perimeter of our city. What the real headline is going to be is that if we're going to honor an urban growth boundary, what we're going to start to look like and sound like and feel like as a city when we say we will not go any further out. Taller, denser, closer, noisier, more urban-like. And many of the things that made it into this plan are directly reflective of input from our neighbors and friends in the county. This has been one of the largest undertakings of social engagement and public engagement that I've seen since I've been on council. So I just want to congratulate the staff. I want to congratulate our colleagues at the county as well for the work that's been done. I urge my colleagues, alas, finally to pass a due comprehensive plan, and then of course the nuts and bolts we will have opportunity to do that actually carry the force of law through ordinance. This is not a legal document, it's a plan, it's an aspirational statement. And I think it's a pretty darn good one, all things considered. And a lot of voices were heard, a lot of voices were reached out to. So I would urge passage, and we still as a council have an opportunity. My concern is that, 5 years from now or 6 years from now, a new council doesn't treat this plan as obsolete, which is within their purview because we can vote on a case-by-case basis. But I think this plan is a great statement of our values, where we are now. I think it's a great statement about what we want to look like and feel like as a city, with due deference to our neighbors and friends in the county as well. The staff, I chaired the JCCPC for a while, and the staff was incredibly responsive when we asked them to go out and get more information or to clarify things. Just a really incredible amount of effort and work. Much of it will go unheralded. Many folk will not realize how much work went into this, but this document is one that's overdue. It's reflective of a lot of engagement. I urge its passage, and then we'll get to work on the text amendments, the UDO text amendments, where the teeth of the document are really worked out. So again, thanks to the staff, and thanks to all of the residents and citizens who took time over however many years to give input to this comprehensive plan, this brand new historic comprehensive plan. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any other comments? All right, thank you all. I would just note for the record that I too have been in receipt of several emails from folk who have felt that their concerns with the plan were not heard. I would ask us to be mindful of that we allow for that to occur. But I do think that we will be voting on it tonight. However, at this point, with those concerns out there, my vote will be a no vote, in keeping that in mind for those people who have voiced to us repeatedly that their concerns have not been heard, and I will vote a no until their concerns are heard. All right, so at this point in time, we will check our clickers, and I think we have to go ahead and entertain a motion for this particular item before we move to the UDO text amendment. So I'm ready to entertain a motion to approve a resolution adopting the Durham Comprehensive Plan.
So move.
Madam Mayor, this clicker's not working.
Yeah, I forgot. We're going to have to do a hand vote. Thank you for that. Your vote, your clicker is not working, Councilwoman. Okay, so we will have to do a left hand raising of the hand. So we had a motion by Councilman Williams. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor, if you assign by raising your left hand. We have Councilwoman Johnson, Councilman Williams, Mayor Pro Tem, and Councilwoman Caballero. All those opposed having the same right. You have Councilwoman Cozy Harmon, Elaine O'Neill, Mayor, and Councilwoman Friedman voting in opposition, and that motion will be carried by the majority. Thank you. And we will now turn to item number 17. We are now back there, which is a zoning public hearing, and we will receive our staff report in regards to the Unified Development Ordinance text amendment changes related to the comprehensive plan. We'll hear from staff at this time.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. I'm Scott Whiteman from the Planning Department. This text amendment, TC 2302, provides minor amendments to the UDO to align with the new comprehensive plan that you just adopted approximately 1 minute ago. Additionally, it adopts new concepts, terminology, and procedures that are inconsistent with the current UDO. Additionally, the comprehensive plan includes new and innovative land use concepts, some of which were not anticipated when the UDO was adopted in 2006. Some of the proposed changes include changing references to the future land use map to place type map, adding or amending procedures and criteria for amending the place type map, future growth areas, and urban growth boundary, establishing a process for a biannual evaluation and assessment report as recommended in the comprehensive plan, removing the requirements for which zoning districts can be applied in which development tier, and specifying that the downtown design district is only applicable in the downtown tier still. Although the new comprehensive plan no longer uses the development tier system, many of the standards in the UDO are tied to the development tiers, so the development tier map will need to remain in effect until a new UDO is adopted. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions from the council.
You have heard the report from staff, and I'm now going to declare this public hearing open. First, are there any questions for staff from members of council? Councilman Williams.
Yeah, how many meetings were had regarding the comprehensive plan?
We do have a count of that that's in the document, but I don't know if we can pull that up for you right now.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we have only 2 speakers signed up for this item. I don't have any cards, and those 2 speakers appear on the internet. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? All right, we have first Ms. Donna Stanback, followed by Ms. Jacqueline Wagstaff. Ms. Stanback and Ms. Wagstaff, you will both have 3 minutes apiece. You, Ms. Stanback, will have the floor first to speak on this matter.
Hello. should be noted that attachment A with the amendment was not available. It just became available around 7:49 p.m. this afternoon. It was not available at 7:39, and I wanted to look at more details than what was being stated. So I think that's a very unfortunate, and we had raised issues regarding this particular some of the items in the amendment, like the mailing range for notification of changes to be 600 feet in the county area that's being annexed, especially like in the southeastern part of Durham. 600 feet is barely takes in one neighbor, and the impact is substantial. So that is not within what we consider acceptable. And we have raised this at previous meetings. I heard the comment about previous meetings. We've been to them, we've attended them, we've spoken out at other meetings. So that is a major issue. And so that's the second issue. And the third issue is the UGB and the FGA can be changed biannually, and that refers to, because bi can have two meanings, that every 2 years. Is that correct? If someone could provide input that is correct, since I couldn't review the document. So those are my key comments. I would have probably had more if I'd had a chance to review it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stanback, for your comments tonight. We now bring Ms. Wagstaff. If you will come to the floor, ma'am, you will have 3 minutes. Ms. Wagstaff, can you hear me? We can hear you.
Okay. I'm concerned, as Ms. Stanback, one of my biggest concern is not having the sufficient documentations to be able to read these text amendment changes that are being proposed, even down to the comprehensive plan. I know that a lot of times we're considered lay people, and it's been said a couple of times, we don't understand most of what y'all do because we're not on the dais. But some of us do know how to read, and some of us do know how to comprehend. And it would have been nice to have some attachments in this so that the layperson can try to understand and be able to have questions that we're thinking about, but we don't see in this plan. Like Ms. Stanback said, my question at first was about this comprehensive plan, but now I know my question was answered when you voted on it. But I would like to know, these amendment changes that are being proposed, are they in correlation with the soon-to-be SCAD projects that will be coming up in November? Are these some of the changes that are trying to be put into the new comprehensive plan that were actually something that these developers, the private entity that wanted the SCAD projects to move forward, are these some of these amendments that correlate with the SCAD project? I would like to know that. Also, when we were saying that they would take, I heard one of the people in the planning say something about something was being taken out of the request tonight because the private developers have worked it out. Well, that's interesting that, like Ms. Stanback said, we know that citizens have been at these meetings, and we know that citizens have brought concern after concern, and those concerns, I guess, don't really matter at this point, but it seems like the private developer concerns and their will and what they want has been taken care of, because they said that the private developers worked out whatever it was that they needed to take out. So there are several concerns about this, but I would like to know if the UDO text amendment changes that are being proposed tonight, are they consistent with anything in the SCAD project? So that's where I'm at on this right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wagstaff. I believe that those are all the speakers that we have signed up to speak to us tonight. And I will now declare this public hearing to be closed, and this matter is back before council. Any other comments? Councilman Williams.
Yeah, I was wondering if staff could, like, maybe a ballpark figure. Sorry to put you on the spot. Say again?
We're counting for it, right?
Oh, doesn't have to be exact, but a ballpark. When you can, I'll ask to come back to it.
Any other comments? Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I thank our residents and neighbors for participating tonight. I believe that 600 feet was changed to 1,000 feet. If I can get staff to respond to that.
Yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, there's a separate text amendment that would change the notification area will be coming to you after this one.
Right.
We were trying to not make any policy changes in this that did not relate directly to the comprehensive plan procedures.
Right. Thank you. And which leads to my second point, and I thank Ms. Wagstaff for her question. No, this has nothing to do with SCAD. These are very specific. They're almost wordsmithing, almost, because of the comprehensive plan that we just passed, making the language consistent with the comprehensive plan, making our UD start. We're actually trying to keep faith with the comprehensive plan that we've passed and start trying to comport ourselves as a council with the force of law, actually in policy with the comprehensive plan. I hope that will remain the case, years hence or months hence, but tonight is about the first steps toward treating this comprehensive plan as something that we value and take seriously as a city. For the record, I would not, by subterfuge or by trickery, slip anything into a vote without expressly and specifically stating it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any other comments, Councilman Williams?
Yeah, could you remind me again what, and this may have just been answered, but the distance from what is the amount of how can I ask this, from a critical watershed area? Like, how far can we? What is that buffer distance-wise? That's what I'm looking for. How many feet?
Let's see. So the critical watershed is typically it's 1 mile from the shore of the reservoirs. There's no specific buffering requirement for when you're near the watershed. It's just we have much more stringent regulations if you're within 1 mile than we do if you're within between 1 and 5 miles. I don't know if that was the gist of your question or not.
Okay. Do you know what it is in Raleigh, off the top of your head?
We think most other jurisdictions use half mile instead of 1 mile.
All right. So Durham is a lot more conservative than others.
We do have more stringent watershed regulations than most other jurisdictions in the state. And then to answer your previous question, we've estimated approximately 200 meetings related to the comprehensive plan.
200?
200.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilwoman Freeman.
Just a couple questions. So what you're saying with the distance, the distance question, is it not possible to just have it include all abutting properties? I know that we're using all adjacent properties in some instances. It's not possible to just do all abutting properties? Because just acknowledging that, for farmland that we're turning into housing, the next property may be over a mile away.
So, Councilmember Freeman, if I might, you're going back to the notification distance question?
Yes, sorry.
So in this amendment, we are not changing the distance for anything. That is happening in the Omnibus 18 amendment, and that is something we can certainly look at as Omnibus 18 moves forward. The only thing that's changing in that notification table in this amendment is changing the name of, for instance, future land use map to place type map, but we are not making any substantive policy changes. That will come, as you know, with Omnibus 18, there are some kind of early implementation changes for the comp plan that are policy changes that will come in Omnibus 18. So we can look at that, absolutely.
I'm going to say it again slower. Is it possible to include all abutting properties?
Yes, we can look at that.
And then, just for the sake of the conversation, with the 200 meetings, how many of those were with county residents that are being annexed into the city? And of that one, have all of the responses, because I do believe that was the largely attended and hotly contested meeting where folks had a lot of questions about what was happening around them because they have no say-so on where their boundaries are or not as county residents.
Yeah, we had, throughout the life of the plan, we had about 15 meetings that focused on county residents. And some of those were way up north, which do not experience a lot of growth, and there are some in southeast, which is experiencing a lot of growth. We tried to take as much feedback as possible and incorporate it into the comprehensive plan, but as you all know, probably better than me, there's always a lot of different opinions when it comes to growth and development, and so we tried to balance what we heard the best we could.
I appreciate that. I want to say that there's a conversation we've had about equitable engagement and equitable policies, and I want to be clear that just listing everything as 600 or 1,000 is not equitable, and that's where, digging a little deeper to have the conversations with folks that live in areas that are directly impacted by our growth and ways in which they are not represented is different. And so that's going to take a different level of engagement. And then I'll also say that the unintended consequences, as often been said in this room, are often intended, and that impact is going to be felt across the entire city in cost. So as taxes rise, because we have to address the concerns around city workers and what have you, this infrastructure that we keep kicking the can down the road on is going to have to be addressed as well. And that cost is going to be on our taxpayers. And I don't know how else to kind of make sure that we're keeping that in play in this conversation with this growth that we're experiencing and how we're addressing it in our comp plan, than to say that you have to have those conversations holistically with workforce economic development, with stormwater, with our solid waste, with fire police. All of those have to be in there, and the cost has to be analyzed. And I'll just keep saying that. Thank you.
All right, any other comments? All right, okay, we have 2 motions for our consideration of this item 17. The first motion is to, and I think that we are going to try and see if our clickers are working. Can everybody make sure that they are saying voting systems at this particular time? All right. So the first motion is to adopt an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance incorporating revisions to Article 3, zoning map change, Section 5, development plan, effective upon adoption.
Moved as read.
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilwoman Freeman. All those in favor, if you would open the vote, I'm sorry. If you vote, open the vote. Okay, so let's do it by hand.
Attend.
Let's try to do another hand vote. Raise your left hand. All those in favor, raise your left hand. You have Councilwoman Johnson, Councilman Councilman Williams, Mayor Pro Tem, and Councilwoman Caballero, all in favor. Those opposed, if you raise your left hand, that would be Councilwoman Jose Harmon, yours truly, and Councilwoman Freeman. That motion will pass 4-3. And we will now entertain motion number 2, which is to adopt the appropriate consistency statement as required per NCGS 160D-605. All those in favor, if you would raise your left hand. I'm sorry, we got to have a move. We have to have a motion.
Move to adopt consistency.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Seconded by Councilman Williams. All those in favor, if you raise your left hand. That is a unanimous vote. Thank you all. All right, we now turn to, did I miss something?
Okay, we don't need that one?
All right, we now turn to item 18, which is a zoning map change. Aventon Harris Farms, that is our next item, and we will hear from our staff.
Mayor O'Neill, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, and honorable council members. Good evening. I am Brooke Roper with the Planning Department, and I'm happy to be here with you tonight. Before I begin, staff would like to state for the record that all Planning Department hearing items have been advertised and noticed in accordance with state and local law, and affidavits of all notices are on file in the Planning Department. A request for a zoning map change has been received from Ron Pereira of Aventon Companies for one parcel of land totaling 39.99 acres and located at 8250 Fayetteville Road. The current zoning is residential rural. The applicant proposes to change this designation to Planned Development Residential 12.471 to allow for the construction of up to 490 apartment units, at least 50 of which will be affordable, and 5,000 square feet of office space. The properties are currently designated mixed-use neighborhood on the place type map. The proposed PDR 12.471 zoning is consistent with the mixed-use neighborhood designation. This request received a recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission on May 9th, 2023 by a vote of 8-0. Both the erosion and sediment control and phase development and tree preservation amendment will apply to this case. This means that a 10-foot no-grade setback will be required at the time of site plan. Additionally, if the applicant does any mass grazing, which is defined as over 4 acres, they are required to provide a 30-foot or 0.6% opacity buffer. Thank you. Staff and the applicant are available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Roper. You have heard the report from staff, and I'm now going to declare this public hearing open. First, are there any questions for staff from members of council? Seeing none, we'll turn to our applicant. And Attorney Patrick Biker will be here. I believe we have 2 persons to speak as proponents, and then I believe we have 11 to speak in opposition for, which would include on the internet. So, Mr. Attorney Biker, we can start you off with about 15 minutes, and then start Mr. Brown off with 10 minutes, if you like. All right. Will there be a total of 25 between the two of you all to start off?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor O'Neill, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, members of the City Council. I'm Patrick Biker with Morningstar Law Group. I live at 2614 Stewart Drive. I'm an attorney. I'm here representing Kelly Development for this agenda item. Tonight I'm joined by Ted Heilbrunn, the principal with Kelly Development Company, whom you'll hear from shortly. Mr. Heilbrunn is one of North Carolina's most successful low-income housing tax credit developers. Also joining us tonight are Kelsey Westwood and Earl Llewellyn of Kimley Horn, our civil and traffic engineers for this fine project. The proposal before you tonight is to rezone almost 40 acres of land located at 8250 Fayetteville Road to PDR 12.471. This rezoning will facilitate a multifamily development that will contain 490 new apartments and 5,000 square feet of office space. Of the 490 apartments, 50 will be affordable housing units financed with a 4% low-income housing tax credit. It is vital to add that there will be no need for gap financing from Durham City or Durham County because of the interrelationship between market rate units and low-income housing tax credit units within this development. At the outset, we think this development plan is, for the most part, consistent with our new place type map that you all just adopted. On the place type map, the parcel is designated mixed-use neighborhood. Consistent with that designation, the project uses creates a mixed-use community since we have 5,000 square feet of office in addition to 490 apartments. Based on following the new place type map and including slightly more than 10% affordable housing, the Planning Commission at its May 9th meeting unanimously recommended approval of this development to the City Council. On a more general note, I believe this project demonstrates how multifamily development in Durham can be done as a partnership between market rate development and a low-income housing tax credit developer like Ted Heilbrunn. With this proposal, our team is responding to one of our city's greatest concerns, the growing cost of housing. We are doing that by providing 50 new affordable housing units along with 440 market rate units. To try to be a good neighbor, our team has undertaken solid efforts with community engagement in connection with this rezoning. To that end, we held 3 virtual neighborhood meetings from June of 2022 to April 2023. My recollection is that over 100 people attended our first virtual neighborhood meeting. Having done this type of work for over a quarter century, I was somewhat surprised that the number of attendees at our 3rd virtual neighborhood meeting dropped to 17 people. I do wish to emphasize that we sent out notification letters to almost 450 residents for the most recent neighborhood meeting held on April 20, 2023, about 2.5 weeks before the Planning Commission public hearing. Accordingly, we have tried to engage with the community and create a development that fits well within the surrounding area and takes into account the feedback we have been given. In part due to this extensive community engagement, we have committed to utilizing a modern farmhouse design for this project. Next slide, please, Brooke. Consistent with this architectural style, the 3-story apartment buildings will have pitched roofs along with balconies or patios for every unit. While the choice to use pitched roofs does increase the building height from 35 feet to 42 feet, which is indicated on our development plan, the result is an aesthetic appearance that we think fits in well with the nearby neighborhoods. Next slide, please, Brooke. As you can see from these last 2 slides, many homes in the vicinity have pitched roofs. And now I'd like to hand over the podium to Ted Heilbrunn of Kelly Development Company to discuss the affordable housing component in more detail. Our team will be happy to answer any questions, and we respectfully ask for your approval, and we ask to reserve the remainder of our time for rebuttal. Thank you.
Mayor O'Neill, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, thank you. Rest of council, thank you for the time to speak tonight. I'll be quite brief. We work consistently to try to find affordable housing development opportunities across the city. As you all know too well, most of the affordable development in Durham happens in a select handful of neighborhoods. Those communities deserve affordable, but the residents of affordable housing deserve to live across the entire city. This is the type of neighborhood that we would not otherwise be able to afford to purchase the real estate in. And so in this transaction structure, we get access to free real estate, we get access to private gap funding. I would note the city has been a leader amongst its peers across the state of North Carolina in bond funds and raising gap funding for affordable housing initiatives. And the truth is much of that funding has been dedicated. And as we think about new ways about bringing affordable housing forward in Durham, we're relying on partnering with market rate developers who are willing to make the financial concession necessary to allow our projects to work. And so we'll be submitting, hopefully with your blessing tonight, an improved rezoning, a 4% low-income housing tax credit application next year. We anticipate being able to start construction on this project in 2025. Happy to answer any questions, but again, we view this as a rare opportunity to pair private gap funding with a location within the city that doesn't see a lot of affordable development. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. I think you used maybe of that 25, total 25 minutes, maybe a little over 16 minutes of it. All right, we have a number of persons who are signed up to speak to us tonight. And we have several who are in person in chambers with us. The first will be Fran Small, if he will come forth at this time. You will have 2 minutes, 3 minutes apiece. Thank you. Ms. Small, followed by Sean Cram, Peter Gastel, John Paul Sheik, Gil Schaefer, and Amy Bradfield. You come at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
State your name for me.
My name is Fran Small, and I live at 7 Buford Court in the hills of South Point. My backyard bumps up to Federal Road and is directly across the street from this property. The 2 lanes of Federal Road cannot handle the thousands of extra vehicles this will bring. The only entrance and exit to my subdivision is Federal Road. We will not be able to get in and out of our neighborhood safely. Federal Road will be so busy that people will start cutting through Chancellor's Ridge and Huntington Ridge to get to 751 and Massey Chapel, making these communities less safe. There is also a pedestrian crossing on Massey Chapel for Tobacco Trail. The traffic will increase pedestrian and cyclist accidents. If you build it, it will come. Crime, the more people, the more crime. Also, do you care about the overworked and understaffed police, fire rescue, garbage, bus drivers, schools, teachers by adding more people? Years ago, this property was zoned as a watershed for a reason. Why is it not necessary now? It affects Jordan Lake. Do you care about Jordan Lake? I know we need apartments and affordable housing, but only when it's the right fit. Building this will have a negative effect on traffic, property values, the environment, crime, and safety. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean Cram.
Thank you.
5 Wood Creek Court, Hills of South Point in Durham. I'll be brief. The proposed zoning change for increased density is out of proportion to surrounding neighborhoods and brings up 2 very important issues. City services. We currently have difficulties in meeting adequate staffing for our city needs without factoring in any growth at all. We have 22% of sworn officer positions and 18% of non-sworn officer positions unfilled. In addition, we have the annexation of 751 South to add to the police responsibilities. Districts 3 and 4, which border the proposed development, consistently have longer priority 1 response times compared to other districts in this city. In addition to the police staffing, we have frequent residential solid waste pickup issues that continue to lapse. Affordable housing. What assurances do we have that the developer will honor the commitment to building all of these housing units, On May 15th of this year, the developer for 751 South asked to decrease the number of affordable housing units built from the previously proposed 130 down to 34. Will this happen at our locale as well? And instead deposited $3 million into the housing fund, which we know does not go very far these days. We need appropriate supported growth, not growth out of proportion to the needs of our city. Thank you.
Mr. Peter Gastel, followed by Mr. John Paul Sheik.
To the Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and the Honorable Council members, thank you. Peter Gastel, I live at 210 South Bend Drive in Durham, North Carolina. And I urge the council to vote no on the zoning map change for Aventon Farms. I'm not against development. I understand the need for housing in the community is pressing, but what I am against is conventional building when we have unconventional problems coming forward. I went to the planning committee meeting and I was not shown or told anything how this development in any way changes the dynamic of conventional development. But to get to some more conventional matters, there's no connected sidewalks from this development. There's no bike trails or mass transit and no near-term plans for any. There's no clear path for the residents of this development to get to the tobacco trail. In essence, every trip for every resident of this development will be a car trip. There's no plan for roundabout, or the only plan for a traffic signal is at West Massey Chapel, across from the Child Care Development Center. There's another traffic light right up the road at Barbie Chapel and Fayetteville Road. It's lost on me how the proffer of this traffic signal is going to alleviate the traffic coming out of this development and the existing neighborhoods. The other thing that I want to talk about is my understanding is that the affordable units in this development will be in a separate building. I'm lost on the rationale. I'm happy to be proven wrong because I hope I'm wrong, but I can't understand the rationale of separating the affordable housing units from the rest of the building complex. What's the point of that? What's the guarantee? What happens to these people after the 15 years are up? Where do they go? What's the plan for the affordable housing residents once that proffer term is over? When I was in front of the Planning Commission to talk about this development, I asked if there were any requirements for green energy or new water abatement strategies or any kind of green building on this property. They all looked at me in a puzzled manner and couldn't answer in the affirmative. They seemed puzzled by the request. So there's no solar, no gray water recycling, no additional stormwater abatement, right? This thing is a giant heat sink, right? I'm trying to look at my time. It's not going to do anything, but as I said, I consider it a heat sink, and I can't see that there's anything being done to abate the energy and water runoff and trash impacts from this development. The Epcon Courtyards, which also border our property, has produced a tremendous amount of trash and destruction to the surrounding creeks. I'm sorry. Nope, that's my time. Anyway, I yield, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sheik, followed by Gil Schaefer.
Pardon me, I too have a cold. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is John Paul Schick. I live with my wife and 2 children at 308 Alumni Avenue. I've lived in Durham since 2000. I am speaking against this zoning request as it is currently proposed. I am not against development, and I am not against more housing in Durham. I'm in favor of reasonable development, which supports and blends with the surrounding areas. This rezoning request does not do that. I'm asking you to consider only allowing the rezoning of this site for townhomes. I've brought with me today show and tell so you can see exactly where we're talking about. This is the site we're talking about for a proposed 490 units. Here's Fayetteville Road. Here's 751, Scott King. You've got the American Tobacco Trail, 2 large churches on Fayetteville Road. This is the site we're talking about. This is Chancellor's Ridge. This is where I live, and others here also live. Everything else that you see on here is single-family housing, with the exception of these green areas that I'm about to talk to you. Everything else you see on this map, which came from GIS, is single-family housing. South Point Mall is up here. First, South Point Trails, built in 2021, 145 townhomes on 27.10 acres, 5.35 units per acre. Chancellor's Ridge has a component of townhomes built in 2000, 80 of them on 15.5 acres. 751 South has a component of townhomes. I counted 191 within 51 acres, which houses 402 total units. So I'm going to give that 7.85 units per acre. Not on this map is Providence at South Point, which is at the intersection of Barbie Road and Highway 54, which is 3 miles from this site. We can walk to it. Built in 2020 by David Weekley, 110 townhomes on 14.38 acres, 7.65 units per acre. Of note, on the plat that was approved for that development that was recorded, the subdivision plat, was the following note. Under design commitments, the proposed architectural design for this development will fit into the context area due to the mix of similarly designed townhouses to the east and southeast of the site. These townhouses collectively provide a transition between the apartments to the west and northeast and the single-family homes to the south. Building heights are the same between the 2 housing types, where the maximum height is 35. I think that note is very telling. So, using the density from South Point Trails, we could get 207 units on this site that's before you tonight. Using the density from Providence and South Point, 302 units on that same site. For this reason, I am against this rezoning from apartments, but I am all in favor of it for townhomes. Thank you for your time. I'd like to leave my comments with the clerk if I could.
Thank you, sir. You may. Ms. Gail Schaefer, followed by Ms. Amy Bradfield, Susanna Stevens. And those would be the cards of the persons that are here in public that I have. Here in person, rather. Sorry.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council people. My name is Gail Schaefer. I live at 903 South Bend Drive, which is in the hills at South Point as well. First off, I just wanted to say I'm in opposition to this development. I'm not in opposition to development in homes for people and affordable housing and such. I just kind of feel like this is not the right time. I think things are going really fast, and I wish people would just kind of slow down. Let's just think about what we're doing before we have a real mess here. So they talked about the traffic, and I just wanted to point out, it's kind of right down at the bottom of John Paul's map. Do you see this right here? That's a major intersection. If you want to go south on 751 and you want to turn onto Fayetteville Road, it is a hairpin turn. And right there at the end, there's always ruts, and I've come by there several times where people are stuck there. They have to get towed out. And I haven't heard any plan to improve this. So that intersection is a nightmare, and it's going to get worse, obviously, if you keep moving, thousands more people in here. So that's something that needs to be done. And then again, my understanding was that the developer of 751 South was going to widen 751 from 2 lanes to 4, and then that's been reneged on. So you've got a 2-lane road there, and Fayetteville is 2 lanes, except they will have an entrance and an exit lane from this new apartment complex, but then they have to go somewhere. On 751, it's getting where the traffic is a nightmare at certain times of the day especially, and then you have Stagecoach Drive, which is a pretty well-used connector to go over to Chapel Hill, and a lot of times that is flooded. So that's going to make it worse too. Another thing, I keep hearing about walkable neighborhoods, and I think that's a great idea, but somebody else mentioned there's no plans to extend bus service to Aventon Harris Farms. So same for shopping. There's not really any shopping that you could walk to. Lions Farm Elementary School is at capacity. Area middle and high schools are also at or near capacity. So how are they supposed to handle a large influx of student population? And then again, like John Paul was talking about, the police force being short-staffed, I'm assuming the fire and EMS are also. So what plans do we have to make sure that those vital services can handle all the proposed new developments? Another thing, 751 South, I believe, was originally going to have a police substation and maybe a fire department, and apparently, no, that's not going to happen either. That probably would have helped. Anyway, those are some of my main concerns. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Council. My name is Amy Bradfield. I live at 3 Wood Creek Court in Durham, also in the hills of South Point. And I'm a new resident. I've been here about 11 years. I am excited about Durham as a place to live, and excited that it's growing and it's thriving. And like some others who've spoke, we need more housing, we need affordable housing, and I agree we need housing in this location. Couple things to take in mind. This is the thing we're talking about. There are 2 more projects that are going to take up this entire triangle that you are not hearing tonight, but are in the pipeline to the Planning Commission. So with them, in your terms of a comprehensive plan, we're not talking 400, we're talking about 800, assuming those get approved. That's the parking allocation is 1.5 lots per apartment. That's about, so we're over 1,000 cars. The closest bus stop is at South Point Mall, 2 miles away, And the Department of Transportation spoke at the Planning Commission and said they have no plans to extend bus service. So this is not as affordable housing. It's not walkable to shopping. It's not accessible to public transportation. I also would love to see affordable housing that for first-time buyers, where you are actually providing a situation where people can grow and invest. I'm not going to repeat what all my colleagues have said about traffic and the 2 lanes. I think we've said that. But I do think, you know, much of and I've had many meetings in my neighborhood. So I'm speaking for myself, for my husband, and for many, many neighbors. Our community would support lower density townhomes or single family homes that would provide less stress to all of the infrastructure issues that have already been mentioned by my friends and neighbors. I'd love to see some portion of affordable priced for entry-level home buyers, not for just renters, but for people who can get in their first home as a small townhouse and grow wealth. In summary, we support my neighborhood the need to grow, the need to add additional housing, but the current proposal as it stands has too many units. It is too far from public transportation and shopping, and the traffic is just too much for the 2-lane roads that support the area. Additionally, it provides proportionally not a lot of affordable housing. The experiences we've seen with 751, which development, that affordable housing was promised and not come through, so we have no guarantee this will be. And this is all rental. There doesn't seem to be any plan to try to provide affordable, low-price units to give people a path to homeownership. So I am against this as it is laid out. I am not against a proposal for development in this area that is more appropriate for all the reasons my friends and I have stated. Thank you for your time.
Susanna Stevens. And that will conclude the cards that I have for persons who are here in chambers with us tonight.
Hello, Susanna Stevens, 606 Chancellor's Ridge Drive. So my house is right here and is directly adjacent to the proposed apartment complex. And I won't repeat any of my neighbors. I just wanted to give just an anecdotal a tidbit. Like when I bought my house, I chose that particular property because I loved the woods that were behind it. There was a lot of privacy. And I've been told that there's going to now be a 60-foot buffer, which I'm a former basketball player. And so I think in terms of the free throw line, and we're talking like not even the full length of one basketball court. This is not very far at all to have a 60-foot buffer. And it just doesn't seem like it's going to serve the purpose it's designed to with such a small number of affordable units. And it's not close to universities. It's not close to shopping. And so I oppose this.
Thank you. We will now turn, thank you, Ms. Stevens, for your comments. We do have persons who have signed up on the internet. First we have, and I'll call them Ms. Morgan Mouchon, speaking as an opponent. Britta Kruger, I do not have you signed up as a position, so when you speak, if you would tell us whether you're a proponent or opponent. Peter Gastel, I think, is here with us in person and has spoken to us already. And the last person that I have signed up would be Ed Johnson. If there are others who are on the internet who would like to speak with us while the speakers that I've called out are speaking, if you would please raise your internet hand, and we'll start with with Morgan Mouchon. You will each have 3 minutes apiece.
Hi all, can you hear me okay?
I think if you could speak just a little louder, we can hear you, but you're coming in very low.
Sure, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. My name is Morgan Mouchon. My husband and I are Durham natives, and we recently purchased our first home in Chancellor's Ridge, where the Aventon development will be built on the other side of our property line. I encourage you all to not approve the rezoning proposal as is, and instead require the developers to build affordable single-family homes or townhomes instead of yet another apartment complex, as well as make much-needed traffic investments that previous developers committed to and failed to uphold. As The Guardian recently reported in May of this year, Durham is a desert place for affordable housing. Rising home prices and mortgage rates in Durham are keeping would-be homebuyers in the rental market. Residents are pushed into the rent trap, unable to save enough for a down payment, mirrored by the low supply in available homes. 48% of households in Durham are renter-occupied. I know that affordable housing is a top priority for the council. Instead of fueling the rental market by adding 490 apartments, 90% of which will be rented at Durham's median rental rate of $116,000 a month, as shared at a neighborhood meeting in June, I ask that you require the developers to build single-family affordable homes instead of yet another apartment building that will push residents deeper into the rental trap. Additionally, others and I have mentioned traffic concerns. $6 million was planned for roadway improvements as part of the 751 South development, which is walking distance from the proposed development. Fast forward to May 15th of this year, when the developers of 751 South were allowed to remove their commitment to widen NC 751 to a 4-lane high roadway. The Aventon development will add 2,500 additional cars to NC 751 and Fayetteville Road. Traffic volume may not be at the traffic impact analysis roadway capacity, but myself and others you've heard from tonight will tell you it is already difficult to turn out and does not feel safe to drive down the crowded 2-lane roads. I ask the council to require the developers to widen the road to 4 lanes to help with the considerable impact on traffic the new development will have. We need housing, but we don't need more rental properties and office space. What I ask is for the council to require Aventon Harris Farms developers to make planful commitments to meet our community's needs, affordable single-family homes or townhomes, and traffic improvements versus what will generate them the most profit in the shortest amount of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments this evening. We turn now to Britta Kruger, and if you would please state whether you're speaking in the opposition or as a proponent. You would have 3 minutes as well.
Yeah, hello, my name is Britta Krüger. I'm in opposition of the development. I live on 202 Diploma Drive in Chancellor's Ridge. I would like to urge the City Council to deny the rezoning and the development plans as presented to you. Here's my reasoning. Earlier this year, City Council approved the following changes with respect to the 751 South, which is across the street from Chancellor's Ridge. The maximum number of houses units increased from 1,300 to 1,753. The office space was decreased by 50%. The builder no longer has to put the affordable units out there, 96 of which are missing, and instead can put a $3 million donation to the dedicated housing fund. The commitment of the builder to widen 751 was removed, making a $1.5 million donation to Durham Public Schools instead of donating the land for a school. All of that already puts a burden on the infrastructure in the south of Durham. The city goal of having a walkable city can't be met with this new development at all. The 5-year plan for public transport has no intention to extend public transport down to us, or the second development that is planned behind Aventon. There is and will not be any walking to the grocery store or a restaurant for dinner in the foreseeable future. 751 during rush hour is today already a parking lot. It is today already difficult to get out of Chancellor's Ridge, make a left turn onto Fayetteville to get towards the mall. All of the schools, including the new Lion Farms, are already at capacity. Aventon and the planned development behind it are just too big for the current infrastructure. I am in favor of townhomes or single-family homes in this area. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comments this evening. Mr. Johnson.
Yes, ma'am. My name's Ed Johnson. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I moved to Durham and with my wife in February 2018, leaving the Virginia, Northern Virginia, DC area. I moved to this area because of what Durham offered, and I chose the 320 Swift Creek Crossing in Hills of South Point because of the type of neighborhood and the type of zoning that was in place. You've heard a lot of positive comments about why I'm opposed to this development. I find it interesting that the attorneys laid claim to rebuttal time. I'll be interested to hear what that is, but let me cover a couple key points. Amy Bradfield brought out the fact that this needs to be looked at holistically. Smart development can't just look at one development. It has to look at the previous developments and potential future developments, not only on Fayetteville 751, but Scott King. Number two is a number of infrastructure concerns were raised. I applaud Councilwoman Freeman for raising concerns about capital funds and capital costs, whether it be schools, which are not available today because they are at capacity. Public transportation is not available. Traffic patterns and roadways are insufficient. You have watershed and impervious space, watershed issues, including down to Lake Jordan. You have ambient light and the impact on nature and animals. This is also not consistent, as you showed, it was shown in the various diagrams with the current neighborhood. I mean, this was zoned a certain way for a certain purpose. You have South Point Mall 2 miles north that has apartments. It has other types of housing that meets the sort of dynamic that's being proposed, including office space, which makes no sense to me. So why not do it around South Point Mall? Why change the dynamic, increase the infrastructure problems that have been dealt with? The other comment is I've dealt with developers, I've dealt with a former executive of the federal government for many years. This is one where I think you need to step back. My recommendation is step back, trust but verify becomes verify but trust. I think all the elements of information that are presented need to be looked at very finely. I know that the Planning Commission voted this 8-0, and I applaud development to meet the needs of the community, but this isn't meeting necessarily the needs of the community. It's not necessarily meshing with the community at large, and changing zoning to basically serve the needs of developer versus the community doesn't make sense to me any. So there are unanswered questions. There are things that I think need to be delved into deeper. And I applaud the council for looking into this, and I thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir, for your comments this evening. I do have 2 additional hands that I believe have been raised. The first will be Jake Royale, and if you would tell us if you're speaking in opposition or as a proponent, and that will be followed by Mr. Adam Smith, if you could do the same. Mr. Royale? Or Royal?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Jake Royal, I live at 504 Chancellor's Ridge Drive. So my house is one of the direct neighbors of the new development, the proposed development. I've lived here since 2000, so I've been here a while. And as my other neighbor stated, I appreciate the woods that are behind my house and the privacy. I feel sad contemplating the loss of one of the increasingly rare undeveloped natural woodland areas in Durham that would accompany this development. I'm not sure if you are open to denying this zoning change, but if it is permitted, the natural buffer between our neighborhoods, I would ask that it be expanded beyond the currently specified small buffer of 50 or 60 feet. This development is not consistent with the surrounding neighborhoods, as other people have pointed out. Chancellor's Ridge specifically has a lot of Army Corps land and game land around it, lots of woods, and this is the Jordan Lake watershed, which I urge you to consider carefully. These protected lands are unfortunately not between Chancellor's Ridge and the new development. That's my direct concern, being on the border. I saw that their plan recognizes and leaves a wider buffer for the occasional stream at the south boundary of the proposed development, but the development plan does not acknowledge the occasional stream directly behind my house that runs north and then joins with another occasional stream, which then run to the west underneath Chancellor's Ridge Drive. I would ask that the plan consider this occasional stream and leave additional undeveloped space around it. I'm also concerned about the stormwater runoff impact of this development. Increasing the woodland buffer would greatly help with the stormwater runoff that will become more problematic with a clear cut as large as the one that will be involved in this proposed development. Forests are our best mitigators of stormwater runoff. They act like giant sponges, slowing water runoff and allowing it to soak down and replenish the groundwater. And 50 additional feet is not wide enough to create a visual barrier, especially in wintertime. I would personally rather not have apartments looking directly into my backyard or have such a small buffer from the sounds and lights of parking lots and lawn maintenance equipment that will likely be present on a weekly basis. And this may sound to you like NIMBY or not in my backyard, but I'm also thinking of the wildlife. I'm creating wildlife habitat in my backyard with my woodland edge gardens, which include native pollinator plants and wildlife food sources. I'm concerned about the impact of such a nearby clear cut on the wildlife, especially considering that most of the interior area of an apartment complex development will not provide wildlife habitat. This space in between our neighborhoods expanded just beyond just 50 additional feet would make an ideal location for an uninterrupted wildlife corridor. Thank you very much for the opportunity for me to speak.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Smith?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. I live at 108 Graduate Court in Chancellor's Ridge. Lived in this house since 2005, worked in downtown Durham. I spoke at the Planning Commission meeting as well. I feel like we had, I think, the most people that night coming out. Was disappointed to see the unanimous vote for. I am in opposition. I heard the lawyer from the development speak earlier and mention, like, in all his years of service, he hasn't seen people drop from 100 people in the first meeting to 17 in the last. I was at every single meeting. You could tell that we weren't being listened to. I can tell you why people dropped off there. It's because the same talking points were used. We couldn't get the information we were asking for. So I totally understand why they had 17 people at that last meeting. I'm not going to go over the same things about 751, but obviously there are concerns about affordable housing and just the traffic coming down, as well as allowing people to build equity. Again, as with many people here today, I'm for the growth in Durham. I love Durham. I've lived in the area for 20 years. I'd love to see opportunities for affordable housing where people can build equity and grow wealth in what they buy, as opposed to rental property, especially with everything nearby being single family or townhomes. Lyons Farm, which is the new elementary school right around the corner, has already had to undergo rezoning and is already full. So with this development, as well as the ones that are mentioned that are under review with additional 300 apartments, you're going to have quite a tax on that school as well. The other thing is, in the traffic infrastructure study that they released, they indicated a potential for 176 new trips in the AM and 232 in the PM during rush hours, which implies that less than half of the properties will actually have cars leaving in the morning or evening, which I find difficult to believe because, as many people have talked about, it's a 2-mile walk to any shopping. It's a 2-mile walk to any public transport. You have to drive if you're going to go anywhere. And Fayetteville and 751 already back up substantially in the mornings and the evenings. As we mentioned, you're going by 751 to 40, or you're going around that hairpin turn to get on 751, both of which will cause problems. And as you look at ITE standards, they indicate for every low-rise dwelling, which is the classification they used in this study, that you should estimate 7.32 trips per day, which would indicate 3,500 new trips for this development, not what they've indicated in that study. So again, really appreciate the work that's going into kind of growing Durham responsibly, and I'm all for growing Durham in that way. But having 42-foot tall buildings right within 60 feet of
Mr.
homes.
Smith. If you wrap up your sentence, your time has ended, but please wrap up your sentence. Okay, all right. Clerk Sharper, if you could tell us how long Patrick, Attorney Biker will have in rebuttal, and then we're going to take our break for our closed captioning, and then we will come back and let you have that time for rebuttal. If you could tell him the time that he will have for rebuttal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Attorney Biker has 27 minutes for rebuttal.
All right. We will now take our break for about 10 minutes. We'll come back at 9:08, and then you will have your time for rebuttal at that time. Thank you. We'll stand in recess for 10 minutes.
Sorry, Mr. Smith. How are the kids?
The Triangle Nonprofit and Volunteer Leadership Center will be using American Rescue Plan Act funds to help support nonprofits and the communities they serve that have been negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The center's Strengthening of Durham Neighborhoods program intends to use $147,000 in ARPA funds. It will help nonprofit agencies maintain their level of services while navigating decreased funding and the loss of volunteers. Some of the ways this will be done are by mobilizing AmeriCorps Seniors RSVP volunteers to help meet direct and administrative needs. The program will also provide financial assistance for agencies to participate in specialized coaching and training in the areas of capacity building and volunteer recruitment. More information can be found at thevolunteercenter.org.
We don't always agree who to pull for on game day, but we all can agree that litter is bad for North Carolina.
It's game time and the recycling champs take to the field.
Let's see their moves. This is some bold play calling. It'll pay off.
To the trash can for the plastic cup.
That's a tricky one.
Garden hose to the trash.
Ooh, nice move.
Only loose items in recycle carts, no plastic bags.
Visit the Durham Waste Disposal and Recycling Center at East Club Boulevard to drop off paint cans, electronics, tires, and more.
We all win when we recycle right, Durham.
The Durham City Council meetings and Planning Commission meetings are now available to live stream on all devices via the City of Durham social media accounts. To watch, simply go to City of Durham NC on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. Devices include phones, tablets, laptops, desktops, streaming boxes and sticks, and smart TVs. The easiest way to view the live stream on smart TVs and streaming devices, such as the Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV, is via the YouTube app. Now you can follow along with the latest developments in the Durham community at dinner, your kids' game, the mall, in bed, during a breather, in the bathtub, and even on the International Space Station.
Like you were saying the night before, probably going to be up all night. Oh, well. I just want this meeting to be over.
So what, in the red down there, what does that say?
Low battery or no signal for some wireless units. That's us saying maybe we could go up there, but I think it.
I think it's something wrong because it did that before with just, it had one.
It had one.
It had one. But
Yeah.
none of the flickers or whatever are showing low like they're all showing full battery. So there's something going on.
Yeah, I think there's something going on too, and it's probably between.
And we did it, we did it 3 times.
And it was working.
And it was working. But it was like glitchy. But then the last time he was like, yeah, I want to do it one more time just to make sure.
No.
And it worked fine. And we were okay.
Some things.
And then the other day, Vivian took three of the units because we had to switch out one of them. Williams was not working. So we had to switch it out. So 2 of them had corrosion and one of them just wasn't working at all, even with the batteries. And so there's something.
So we have to send those in.
And so there's no extras left, to switch out and break. So she's looking into getting them refurbished, if they can fix it or what it would cost to get new things. So.
Oh, I didn't realize we had corrosion. That's probably the problem.
And that's what I said to Vivian. I said, once we get them all back and working, we probably need to take the batteries out.
Well,
definitely on the ones we're not using, they're going to sit there for a while.
Yeah. Well, the problem is when you get them refurbished, it takes months. I mean, it took probably a half year. So, I mean, it'd be nice if they could just send us new ones, and then we would send them the old ones, and then they refurbish those. If we could arrange that, I'd be cool with it. But it seems like they lock you into using the system with faulty handsets.
Yes, I feel like something's going wrong to have that many error messages because it's not.
Well, it's different times, 25, 33, 42, 46, 56. So, yeah.
I wonder if I go get them and fiddle with them over here.
If you want.
Could we restart?
I just want to keep them doing hand votes. I don't want to have them go back and forth because then they get kind of like, oh, mine doesn't work. So I just prefer they keep doing hand votes, and we'll just try to fix them. And I didn't know there was a corrosion issue.
And the one that I just changed the batteries, I noticed it corroded too. I feel like that might be the issue with a lot of.
Are we getting really cheap batteries?
I mean, it's not like, it doesn't look like they've leaked. It's just a little bit of, you know what I mean? Like it's not, sometimes you open stuff and it's like all
right
in there. It's not like that. It's just a little metal spring thing.
Right. Huh. Okay.
I've heard this attorney.
Attorney? Oh. Oh, gosh. Wow. Patrick Biker? Yeah, he used to be a council member. Yeah. That's why he's got so much experience and he knows what to say. What to say to get what he wants.
He wasn't well received.
Oh, he wasn't?
But
I'm sure he's had a lot of,
people just didn't want it, you know.
I'm sure he's, you know.
How long?
All right, everybody, it's 9:08, and we will resume with item 18, and we are now at the point for our proponents for rebuttal. Attorney Biker, you have 27 minutes.
7 minutes of your valuable time. I do want to respond to a few comments that were made, and one very important clarification. There was a reference to the affordable housing remaining affordable by 15 years by one of the speakers. That is incorrect. The affordable housing within this development will be affordable for 30 years. That is a requirement of the low-income housing tax credit program administered by the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. So I want to be very clear on the record that the 50 affordable units will be affordable for 30 years. A lot of conversation about traffic. I hope you all had a chance to look at page 4 in your staff report that has the actual numbers for Fayetteville Road. The staff report shows that the existing capacity on Fayetteville Road is 14,200 cars a day, and the actual traffic count on Fayetteville Road is 8,400 cars. So if you do the math, Fayetteville Road is 41% under capacity. And so that was part of the reason why our team, led by Ted Heilbrunn, identified this site as a good one to pursue. Those are really the only 2 points we wanted to make, clarification on the term of the affordable housing and the existing traffic conditions. Our team is here to answer any questions. Ted about the affordable housing, Earl Llewellyn did our traffic impact analysis, and we're happy to answer any questions that the council may have. I respectfully ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Biker. Mr. Heilbrunn, do you have any? You have time for rebuttal if you'd like to make some further comments, sir. All right. I will now declare the public hearing to be closed, and this matter is back before the council. We will open it for any questions or comments that council members may have at this time. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you. I just noted there were a couple questions from the Planning Commission, just checking to see if you were doing the 100-year flood protection or stormwater, but yes.
Are we doing anything above and beyond on stormwater? No, we're not able to do that, undertake that.
And the road improvements?
Pardon me?
Road improvements?
Oh, yes. Road improvements will be turn lanes for both entrances on Fayetteville Road. Our estimate is that'll be about $500,000 of infrastructure improvement paid for by the private developer, so that there are turn lanes in both entrances for the project.
Thank you. And I just had a different question. You might not know, but is there a mechanic shop located nearby? Is there a shop nearby?
Not to my knowledge, council member.
That was all. And there was a speaker that I had a question for. I think it was Sean. Nope, it wasn't. It was Peter's. Peter? Are you still here? When you were talking about your request for green energy, no gray water recycling, and solar, if you could come back to the mic. And a stormwater abatement, are these all items you put in writing to the developer? Were they requests you made to the developer in writing?
No, I asked about this to the Planning Commission when this zoning map change was brought to the Planning Commission. My request was the builder or the developer doing anything unconventional in terms of things like gray water recycling, rooftop gardens, solar, heat pumps, super insulation in the walls, anything that's LEEDs type, energy efficiency, anything to do additional water retention. I mean, the weather's changing, whether anyone wants to believe it or not. We're getting more rain, it's getting hotter, and I asked the Planning Commission, was any of this taken into consideration as proffers for the developer? And they all looked puzzled by the request. So.
Thank you. And I just wanted to ask staff, if there's a possibility that they ask that question, or how it would be framed to ask that question of developers as they come forward with projects.
Do you mind reframing the question? I'm just trying to better understand you.
Is there any requests for any LEED certified proffers or requests, or just to ask if they are doing any LEED certified items in their development projects?
So no, not at this time. I will say internally, staff has been working on modifying our staff reports to better showcase the sustainability and environmental impacts of projects, and we're working with the city sustainability manager on that right now.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for bringing that up. That was all, Madam Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to thank all of the residents and neighbors for coming out tonight. First off, just staff, I have a question and a comment, maybe an observation. I noticed in a couple of our items tonight, it just says attachment A, attachment B, attachment C. It's really helpful. We usually have what the attachment is, so I hope maybe that's just a thing for tonight, but if we could just go back to the old ways of planning, you know, the development plan, whatever it is.
It actually says it on mine.
It doesn't say it on mine?
Really?
No.
It says aerial map, context map.
Clearly racism, because mine doesn't have it.
Maybe sexism.
Thank you. Staff, can we, what can be built on this current zoning by right on this property?
Give me 1 second to pull that up. All right, so the maximum use of the existing zoning right now would be under the residential rural zoning is 80 single-family homes.
Right. Which I don't think is a optimal use for me of that space out in this particular part of town. I have a question for the developer. One of our neighbors asserted that there are plans to make put the affordable units in a separate building. Could you speak to that?
Absolutely. All of the affordable housing that we build here in Durham is financed with the low-income housing tax credit, and that program is administered by North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. The rules surrounding the common ownership necessary to integrate the affordable and the LIHTC and the, call it market rate units, make it really, really difficult for a market rate developer to commit to a project. And so across the state of North Carolina, there's really a number of projects that can be counted on a single hand that have been able to do this. One that I'd point to would be one that was just completed by, or the construction was commenced by the Charlotte Housing Authority in downtown Charlotte. But on the whole, the vast majority, 95% plus of affordable housing in North Carolina effectively requires the LIHTC and the affordable to sit on separate parcels so that can be separately financed.
All right. First off, I'm happy that you're not competing against the city for any 9% LIHTC projects, but we have set a standard, I don't know whether to call it official or unofficial or formal or informal standard in Durham, that we don't want a differentiation between the affordable units and market rate units. Now, granted, the city's got a project downtown where you can't tell a difference in material, aesthetics, and I appreciate the aesthetical concern in terms of pitch roofs with respect to the character of the neighborhood, which I'll speak to in a minute. But is it totally cost prohibitive for you to, notwithstanding what normally happens with LIHTC, to incorporate the units into
The issue is that in the light tech development space, we don't monetize these units in a traditional sense, right? A market rate developer would buy a piece of land, pull a rezoning, build a project, lease it up, and then they would sell it to an investor, right? And they exit the transaction, they go spend that money and develop something else across the community. We build these units and then we hold them for the duration of at least the federal compliance period, which is 15 years, and oftentimes longer if we decide to re-syndicate the project and take it back to the tax credit program. And so the issue is NCHFA requires common ownership of the entire project if you integrate the units. And so unwinding that and selling a market rate portion and have the LIHTC developer retain ownership of the LIHTC portion of the project is a really, really sticky mess to undo. And so in North Carolina, and part of the reason, frankly, is because there's sufficient land that development doesn't have to be like in a New York City, tall and vertical, where you'd have to integrate units within a building. The vast majority of LIHTC development here in North Carolina are garden-style apartments on separate parcels.
How, if you can answer this question, how dramatic a difference aesthetically would the affordable units be from the market rate units on the property?
I mean, it's our intention to stay as consistent as possible. What I'll tell you is that our challenge is that the NCHFA program has design requirements that we have to specifically meet. What I'll tell you, though, is that the amount of stone in our facade far exceeds what folks building garden-style market rate apartments are doing. So the truth is the QAP's design requirements don't direct you to cheaper construction, but the idea that we'd be able to commit to building identical product is just tough at this stage to commit to.
Thank you. I want to sincerely thank the residents from the area who've come out tonight and shared their concerns, many of which resonate with me. When I bought my single-family home, I bought it because there was a golf course that I could walk to and hit balls every Monday morning. 2-lane road. That golf course is gone, and there are houses there. It's still a 2-lane road. Later tonight, I'm going to be listening to a case that's in my neighborhood that will put apartments very close to my neighborhood, which will affect my road is still 2 lanes, which obviously is going to impact me. It's going to impact my commute. But something I realize and I think really needs to be said as neighbors and friends in a city that's changing and growing. I remember, I think it was between 1998 and 2005 when Chancellor's Ridge was built and what the arguments against Chancellor's Ridge were at that time. And what some of the arguments that are being made now, if Chancellor's Ridge had to be reconsidered, and many of the arguments would sound the same. There's no neighborhood in this city, and that's 2005, I think Chancellor's Ridge was completed. We have neighborhoods in our city that go back to the turn of the last century prior to the last one, who have not been exempted from change, who have not been exempted from impact, growth in the character. And their character is much older than Chancellor's Ridge. But I empathize with that because my neighborhood is changing. And the reasons why, I was attracted to my neighborhood is now changing. But my question for me as a decision maker and people you trust, one of the people you trust to make good decisions, is my neighborhood, should it be any more exempt than any other neighborhood in the city that is experiencing change? And I think the answer is no. I think the Planning Commission got this one right. We need all types of housing, apartments, townhomes, and single-family homes. And I don't think we've gotten to the level now in either one of them where we can now say throttle back on one and present another. It's interesting, and I'm glad to hear advocacy for townhomes because I've heard other residents say, you speak demeaningly about the townhome lifestyle. I've heard other residents speak about the apartment lifestyle. I've heard residents who are density proponents speak against single-family homes. So all of those stocks, all of those types of housings bring with them their critics and their fans, but we need all of it in Durham. And it's not only housing, it's the 5,000 square feet of office space. And the question is this Class A, or do you view this being as lab space? What kind of office space are we talking about?
The vision would be to have it be more co-working space. And so that's obviously office market nationally is struggling right now, but we still think it could be viable as co-working space, and that would certainly provide opportunities for future residents of the apartments to have access to better IT infrastructure than they would probably have in their apartments.
All right. Yeah, the major mall in the area, excuse me, I-40 in the area. I also heard something about affordable and not being walkable. I just want to be clear that sometimes we conflate the terms. Affordable housing does not mean low-income housing. And there are many people who are qualified for affordable housing who have cars. So we're not talking about folk who do not have vehicles. We're talking about affordable, and when you get into AMI, 80%, 60%, but many of those folk own cars. Finally, I just want to say also, because I do take seriously the arguments about service delivery, police, and fire. And I think what we have to be careful about as residents is that the issues that we face, that every municipality in our nation is facing in terms of turnover and filling vacancies, is not germane to just one neighborhood. If it's an issue for one neighborhood, it's an issue for the city. And if we universalize that argument, then we shouldn't be building anything until we hire every police officer. We shouldn't be building anything anywhere if it's a response issue, and that's clearly not the case. That's clearly not realistic for our growing city, a city that's growing leaps and bounds, and we do need housing. We do need all types of housing. I understand why the Planning Commission voted yes on this project and in that particular area. It's an area, South Durham is an area with a lot of affluence out there, and we've made a commitment as a city that affordable homes would go everywhere and in every neighborhood, and every neighborhood needs to bear that change of our city. It is not lost on me the nature of character of a neighborhood and the change in character. I'm dealing with that in my neighborhood, and there are neighborhoods far older than both of ours that are dealing with it as well in our city. But that is the case of where we are. I'm going to support this project. I think the Planning Commission got it right. I urge my colleagues to do the same. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any other comments? Councilwoman Freeman?
I just have one additional question for the developer around the buffer. I heard that comment about 60 feet not being enough, just acknowledging that you're backing up. If that's over 35 feet, 42 feet?
Okay, we can, if we can specify on the record tonight that we will commit to at least a 60-foot buffer along that side.
Thank you.
We'll wordsmith that with Brooke in the morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilman Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question for staff, actually, regarding emergency services. Currently, can emergency services reach the surrounding neighborhoods?
So I'm going to call on the director. So we don't typically do a fiscal impact analysis for just a rezoning, but I'll let Sarah chime in.
Thanks, Brooke. I was going to say the exact same thing. Actually, Brooke covered it. We don't have that information because that type of analysis isn't done with rezoning. It's only done with annexations.
All right. So oftentimes I usually ask questions that I know the answer to in a sense. So currently, the emergency services can reach all of the surrounding neighborhoods. So therefore, I'm assuming it would be able to reach the spaces in between. I heard many of the comments from the neighbors, and I just wanted the residents to know that they are heard. You all are heard. However, a lot of the decisions we have to make are scientific as well. So we try to balance that. We try to balance the convenience of what's already there versus what we like objectively have before us as far as data. So when it comes to driving on the roads, which I do often, I work out at a gym. I have to go down 751. Depending on the day, I understand what's happening with stage code. and I understand what's happening with 751. I see what's happening on Fayetteville, and I know what happens at that triangle intersection, well, the slanted T intersection at the Culver Farms house. However, I see what happens at certain times of the day, but it is not always that way. And I think what we have to do is have a really honest conversation where we provide room for those who live there to be able to express their concerns, but also we have to balance that with the overall reality that, you know, we can't really say affordable housing if we go with the current zoning of that property, which would only allow 80 single-family homes. Those homes are now they're starting at $500,000 and going well over $1 million. So that is just, those two, and I've said this before, it's really hard to make those two logics fit in the same phrase. This is an area that's ripe for fulfilling the capacity that it has to fill, and that's what I'm looking at. You know, and I can also, you know, hear the argument around the character that's there, but I think that, you know, the more we diversify our housing options, the more people we can house. And there is this common narrative that, you know, it's all happening too fast and we need to slow it down. Two things I know for sure, other than death and taxes, is people are going to come, and we cannot control who moves here. This is a democracy, it's not a dictatorship. So when people come, they're gonna have that conversation with the property owner or the landowner. And that transaction happens absent of the government. When it comes to us, we're making this type of decision. And if we say no tonight, that does not mean housing will not go there. Housing will go there, it just will be out of reach for a lot of folks. And that's the reality that we're given tonight. So oftentimes we get this narrative it becomes misunderstood. And folks say, well, we need to take care of the folks that are right here. We need to take care of the folks that are right here. That is what we're trying to do. Because if we don't increase the supply, then folks will start pushing people out. And that's just basic fact. So our job is to try and mitigate this as much as possible. And that is what really drives my decision making, even sometimes against my better judgment, my own judgment. So I just wanted to put that out there, that, you know, I've listened to all sides and I've heard the residents as well. To me, it just simply makes sense what's coming in this proposition.
Thank you for your comments, Councilwoman Jose Harmon, followed by Councilwoman Johnson.
Hi, so I thank all of my colleagues for their comments, and I thank Councilman Leo Nana Williams that always says that we have to continue to kind of think about the people coming in, and I agree, but we also have to think about the people who are here. And that area, I live in that area, and so the traffic is horrendous. Certain times of the day, like he said, you know, it can be, you know, I've moved there in 2006, and so I have seen the increase of the traffic. I know it is a right place that a lot of people want to move to, but the traffic is ridiculous. I want to ask the developer, to explain this whole, again, I know you explained it, but the rationale to having to put the affordable units in one area, because my social work hat kicks in, and I think about discrimination. That's just my hat. So I just need you to kind of explain that a little bit more.
Let me be clear from a policy perspective. It would be incredible if the rules were structured in a way that forced market rate and affordable developers to stick units in the same buildings and have truly integrated mixed income development. But the reality that we are forced to live with is that, at least in North Carolina, inclusionary zoning has, you know, all sorts of state laws that prohibit it. And for market rate developers who have the choice between placing units that are integrated into a project across the city or the ample opportunity they have to build market rate specific developments, no market rate developers, I'm not one of them to be clear, will end up choosing to integrate units, particularly when combined with the fact that to meet NCHFA's requirements for tax credits for 4% LIHTC developers, there needs to be common ownership interest for the entire project. And so when we're a part of a project where there is a market rate and a LIHTC component, there's a market rate developer who goes out and capitalizes and develops that portion of the project, and we do the same with a separate set of tax credit investors and lenders and construction lenders. And with the current set of rules that are in place at a state level and the current policy at NCHFA, it lends itself, unfortunately, to be clear, to have these properties and these developments sitting adjacent to each other as opposed to being fully integrated within the same building. So what I would tell you is that if the rules were different, if that type of development was mandated or incentivized or in some way, shape, or form a different series of policy dynamics surrounding it, I think you might see more of it. But this is less me not wanting to do it, and it's simply that it is not possible in the current rules that exist today, here in North Carolina specifically.
And I might, it could be just me, but I know with other projects coming before us, I think that they have done some of that. So it would be, if you could, later on, because I'm sure this is going to pass, but if you could send me that.
I'd be happy to continue the discussion. I think some of the integrated affordable units
I need to do some more in, just my own research on that, because again, I just feel like it's discriminatory. But I hear you, but I'm just saying that's, yeah.
The last thing I'll add is that using the LIHTC program allows us to get tax credit financing that allows us to build more units, right? And so if folks are coming and bringing proffers forward and saying, hey, we'll do 3.5% at 60% IMI and 3.5% at 70 and 3.5% at 80 or 80 and 100 or whatever the AMI proffers are, those are units that are not being financed with the LIHTC program. So when you see those projects come forward, the affordable units that are coming with them are in a lower amount or a higher AMI level than what we're able to do with the LIHTC program. The problem is when we take tax credits, we're subject to all these rules by NCHFA, which makes things trickier. So I hope that's a little bit of context.
Thank you for explaining, because I knew that we've had some, as I think Mayor Pro Tem said, I think we've had some projects that came before us that they were able to do that. It's just like I said, my social work hat kicks in and I'm like, I'm sure you're not going to do this, but it's like, is those people going to be in that particular area? Are they going to get the, the same structure, the same buildings, the same everything? I don't know. I just start thinking about all these things. But anyway, thank you. But again, if you can just send me that information, I would like, because
I'd be happy to follow up.
Research on it. Thank you.
Yes, and just to follow up on that, council member, all the design commitments apply to the building that Ted builds as well as the market rates. So it's the exact same architectural commitments. So if you're driving 45 miles an hour down Fayetteville Road and you look to the right, you won't be able to distinguish the market rate from the affordable.
But the populations might be different, right? That live in those particular, I'm just saying, to me, it just reeks discrimination, but I understand what you're saying.
Councilwoman Johnson, followed by Councilwoman Freeman, followed by Councilwoman Williams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't repeat my colleagues too much. I just wanted to say I'm excited about this project. This area seems like it could really use some apartments. When I looked up the mix of homes in the area, I saw a lot of very expensive houses, a few townhomes that were a little bit more affordable, but not a lot of apartments. And I don't think that having apartments and rental housing in an area is a bad thing. I think having a mix of opportunities for ownership and rental, having a mix of different housing types is a good thing for our city and something that we generally, strive for, having different kinds of homes at different price points in different areas of the city. This is a very expensive area. I just looked on Zillow while we were sitting here and saw homes that were, selling for well over the median home price, $600,000, $700,000, one for $1.2 million. And so this is an area where I think some affordability is really great, and I appreciate the the higher percentage of affordable housing in this project than we typically get. Again, we often have developments where it'll be 2 or 3% affordability. Sometimes we have to fight folks down from 80% AMI to 60. Having over 10% affordable apartments is a real shift from what we typically see, and I think that makes the project much more useful for what we need in our community. In terms of traffic, I do have family nearby in this area. I drive up and down Fayetteville Road a good bit, and I know that the subjective experience of traffic can be very different for folks depending on what time of day they're driving or just folks' general tolerance or expectation for traffic. When you drive to other larger cities and you get stuck in traffic, it's very, very different than it is here. But me being here, when I'm stuck in traffic on Fayetteville Road, I find it frustrating. But we do have a traffic study for this development, which shows very little change from this development to the amount of traffic on the road. And so, while the subjective experience of traffic for folks, and, I count myself among them, may be different, we do have some objective data that shows that traffic is not going to be a big problem as a result of building this project, not any more so than just the increase that would be predicted over the next couple of years without the project. So that makes me feel a little bit better about some of those concerns. And, with regard to the affordable housing being in a different building, we are getting these 50 units without any city investment, which is a huge deal because we have to really be careful about how we spend our affordable housing dollars, and we can't, if we aren't able to subsidize a project and that project has to follow the rules that that the state has laid down. And honestly, I think our tax credit programs, while very useful, and we make as much use of them as we can here in the city, leave a lot to be desired. And I would make a lot of changes to them if I could. But having to work within that structure and, having the benefit of being able to get that state funding and that private funding rather than having to spend our own money, I think that we kind of have to weigh our costs and benefits. And while we might prefer to have those units more spread out around the neighborhood, we're not having to subsidize these units, which will allow us to build units elsewhere. And we do have a number of all affordable developments in Durham that are thriving. Willard Street Apartments, right down the street from me, from my home. The new apartments that they just built at J.J. Henderson, which are Durham Housing Authority, also right down the street from me. And I think that we can have very successful all affordable development, especially at the 60% AMI, which is workforce housing. This is not public housing. These are not folks who are necessarily living in extreme poverty. These are people who are who have ordinary working class jobs and can't afford to live in the city anymore because of the escalation in home prices that we've seen over the last few years. And it's not necessarily going to be folks that are new to Durham. There are lots of people in our city right now who are housing cost burdened, who would love an opportunity to move into a more affordable apartment. While people are moving here from out of town, I think it's also, this kind of project also serves current Durham residents who can't really afford their housing now and need more affordability. So I like this project. I'll be supporting it. Appreciate the work of the developer to really bring us affordable housing. That's something that we consistently say that we want and we don't always get a lot of. And so I want to give credit for creating projects that give us more affordability, because that's really the thing that we need most in our community. We need more housing overall, but more than that, we need more housing that's affordable to our lower income and middle income folks. And I think we all know that, and it's good to be able to see a project that actually meets that need. Thank you.
I think it was Councilwoman Freeman, Councilman Williams, then Councilwoman Caballero.
Thank you. I just
And I won't.
had a question for staff around that incentive for an integrative building, if that's been something that we've explored at all.
Not at this time, but we definitely can in the future. See, Sarah. coming up.
So our current affordable housing bonus, which is the zoning incentive we have, does require that the units be integrated throughout. But as you know, we don't, up until recently, we have not had a lot of takers use the bonus. But that is built in. It's one of the things that we'll be looking at further as we rewrite the ordinance, how we can strengthen that.
And I appreciate that. I think that from that standpoint, it's hard to continue to pit one against the other. And so I really like the project. I really like the idea of having the 50 units at no cost to us. But the cost is to the folks who live in that neighborhood. And as you pit their homes against this towering site, the buffers, the transitions, all those things matter. As this is, like, if it was my home, that's the greatest investment that I have. That's what I have for retirement. Like, these are the things that matter to me. And when you tell folks in the community that, just suck it up because, we all have to, it just seems lazy. And I'm really, appalled by it every time someone says it. But I do think that as a city, we have to figure out what our motivations are or our political will is, and trying to figure out what it looks like to actually be beholden to the taxpayers of this city. First and foremost, knowing that, we have a shortage of housing that is affordable to the people who work here in the city. And so I could support the project if I knew that there was a plan to even address the transit, just the 2-lane road. I know that we've done so many projects where we're not going to be able to catch up with the level of infrastructure we need to put in place for at least a decade. And I hear everyone saying, run, run, run. We still just need to build housing, build housing, build housing. That's going to create this tax base that's going to cover it all. And I haven't seen it. It's been the last 20 years, and it hasn't kind of materialized in that way. And there's so many more things I will say, but I won't tonight. But yeah, I can't support pitting one against the other. We have to figure out these both ands in this, because you can't just say, this is where we should just put this box or these boxes on top of folks. It has to be a way where we're transitioning into this in a very neighborly way. And so I appreciate that the project has come forward. I do think that it'll be great to see more projects like this. I just can't support this evening. Thank you.
Councilman Williams, and then I think Councilwoman Caballero.
Thank you. A few questions for staff. I know you guys want to leave that mic alone. Just a few basic questions as we're trying to navigate this conversation. How do we pay for what's the source of funding to pay for infrastructure?
So that's going to come from our capital improvement plan we do the participatory budgeting for.
And how do where's the source of funding for that come from?
I'm seeing a hand.
So all of the city-built infrastructure, it comes from primarily debt, because the investment is so great that we normally do not cash fund major infrastructure improvements. So generally, it comes from debt, general obligation debt, for which our tax base pays the debt service over 20 years.
So it comes from the taxpayers?
Yes.
All right. And if we pay for our debt with our AAA credit rating, which allows us to have a very low interest rate, the best way to pay for this debt is, well, the only way is from our tax base. And when we have more folks that are, paying into that, then we have better ability to pay for the infrastructure. Otherwise, it's just not going to appear by osmosis. And this is a government, and it's also a city, and it's an organism. It's an organism, and cities, they are vibrant, they grow, and if you don't grow, you die. and that's just fact. And there's a lot of nuance around us where, yeah, we want to make sure we're doing it the right way, and that's what we're trying to do, at least in my interpretation. And I know that it is just impossible and improbable to not do anything until we expect something to happen by osmosis. It's just, that doesn't make sense. So, let's see. I wanted to ask the applicant here, the developer, like, can you talk more about your financing strategies here? Oftentimes, you all come up here, you give us a presentation, but you don't really talk about what all we're going to get out of it, other than just affordable housing, or either maybe a donation to the school system. Can you tell me the investment dollar amount, or however you want to word it, to the road improvements, to all of the other enhancements that are coming, whether they are, all the things that you're doing that you don't have to do?
I mean, my response would be, and this is inevitably going to sound like a cop-out answer coming from a developer, but the truth of the matter is a project that pays market rate for land and gets access to capital at a market rate cannot do everything, right? We can't do 300-foot setbacks and shrink density and proffer affordable housing, which in this case, without getting too wonky, this site is not in a qualified census tract. We are not going to be submitting for a 9% low-income housing tax credit and compete with other projects, other institutions here in the city like Durham Housing Authority, who likes to use that as a means of financing their own developments. So this project's not getting the extra 30% tax credit on top of that. And so the resources necessary to bridge this and make it work is a meaningful amount of money. And so, I think on traffic infrastructure, the truth is our instincts are to follow the instructions in the report, which have provided us a pathway to commit to turn lanes and, not necessarily wide road expansions. But I would say the focus in terms of the proffers here is to prioritizing privately funding and gap funding affordable housing.
Thank you. And I'm gonna let it pass tonight, but I'm gonna need you and whoever else come before us to start simplifying that so that everyone can understand it. I want a more honest conversation around it. I want a more, not necessarily honest, it's gonna be honest anyway because it's law, but a more transparent conversation. Because if it's not and things aren't put out there, then the narrative gets hijacked. And I'm sick of it. That's been happening a lot. So in order for us to have a true transparent conversation, I want it all out there. And I also welcome from the community side, and I'll participate. Let's create a mutual aid fund. Let's put some skin into it. That's all I have to say.
Councilwoman Caballero.
Thank you. Good evening. I appreciate all the comments. I will be brief. I will be supporting this project for many reasons. Namely, this developer has put other affordable housing projects in Durham, mostly on Carver Street, if I'm not mistaken. And it has been done very well with a lot of community thought and input. And so the fear that I've heard from some residents about, are they going to be able to deliver the units, et cetera, I don't have that fear because they've already been in process with other developments across the city. This developer, the kind of developers we need, when we don't actually have to put our local dollars into we don't have them right now. Every single dollar that we have for affordable housing is allocated. There was a large bond passed. It's a $160 million program, $95 million of local dollars. That's what the bond was in 2019. It's a 5-year housing strategy. We're going to have to come up with another one because the need for affordable housing is only increasing. So when we don't have to use local dollars, it really helps us as a city because we're not using our own resources. So heard from my colleagues with their frustration. That is beyond the developer's control. Those are the rules of North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. They're also the folks who limit how many 9% you can go after. Not everybody's like that. North Carolina, quite frankly, is one of the hardest ones. There's a lot of examples across the United States where their rules are a lot better than North Carolina's. It's just another way we are failing in North Carolina, and that is beyond local control. So yeah, I will be supporting this project. I do also want the folks who are worried about the school capacity at Lions Farm, there is the other elementary school that will be coming on in 2025, so that will help South Durham in general. Massenburg, I think, is the name of it. And so that will help with the crowding, or the almost crowding that's happening at Lions Farm. This project helps hit a lot of our goals. It provides housing variability, right? Not just one type of housing. It provides affordable housing in a census tract that normally doesn't see it. And it provides needed density. If we want the transit solutions that I think I heard from residents, we have to actually have more housing. If we just do single family, we're never gonna get buses down Fayetteville Street or 751 or connect it close to South Point Mall, which is a massive transit hub for our area. We need more density. I think earlier when we passed the comp plan and we had that urban growth boundary put in place, it's an example, we've decided we're not gonna sprawl out, that for lots of environmental reasons, we need to have a defined boundary, but that means everything within that boundary is going to have to be denser, and that's the decision we made when we passed that comp plan. Thank you. Thank you for bringing this project forward.
Thank you, Councilwoman Caballero. Colleagues, we have 2 motions for our consideration. Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, no, ma'am. I'm sorry. I was just fixing the microphone. I'm done.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right, the first motion is to adopt an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance by taking property out of the residential rural Falls/Jordan District-B and establishing the same as planned development residential 12.471 Falls/Jordan District-B.
Moved as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem and seconded by Councilman Williams. Madam Clerk, if you could open the vote, we'll try and see if this is working tonight.
Madam Mayor, we have found out what's caused the handset problems. There's some corrosion in the handsets. That's why the connection's broken.
All right, well, we will take a hand vote. All those in favor of motion number 1, if you would raise your left hand. We have Councilwoman Caballero, Mayor Pro Tem, Councilman Williams, and Councilwoman Johnson voting in the affirmative. All those opposed have the same right. We have Councilwoman Freeman, of yours truly, and Councilwoman Hosen-Hammond voting no on that. That motion will pass. 4-3. Motion number 2 is to adopt a consistency statement as required by North Carolina General Statute 160D-605.
Move to adopt consistency.
Second.
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem and seconded by Councilman Williams. All those in favor, if you would raise your left hand. I believe we have 7 hands that are raised for a unanimous vote. We now turn our attention to item 19, which is a zoning map change, Hillsborough Road, Coca-Cola bottling site. This is a public hearing, and we will receive our staff report at this time.
Mayor Neal, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, and honorable council members, good evening. Brooke Roper with the Planning Department. A request for a zoning map change has been received from Jay Douglas of the Ardent Companies for 1 parcel of land totaling 11.7 acres and located at 3214 Hillsborough Road. The current zoning is industrial light. The applicant proposes to change this designation to Planned Development Residential 64.223 and Commercial General with the graphic development plan to facilitate the construction of up to 405 dwelling units, which would be a mix of townhouses between 25 and 35 units and multifamily apartments between 370 and 380 units. At least 5 townhouses will be designated as for sale affordable units for 30 years at 80% AMI, and at least 5% of the multifamily units will be income restricted for rent units for 10 years, half of which will be rented at 100% AMI and the other half will be rented at 80% AMI. The applicant also proposes up to 75,000 square feet of non-residential space. The properties are currently designated mixed-use neighborhood on the place type map. The proposed PDR 64.223 and CGD zoning is consistent with the designated place type of mixed-use neighborhood. This request received a recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission on September 12th by a vote of 9-0. Both the erosion and sediment control and phase development and tree preservation amendment will apply to this case. This means that a 10-foot no-grade setback will be required at time of site plan. Additionally, if the applicant does any mass grading, which is defined as over 4 acres, they will be required to provide a 30-foot 0.6 opacity buffer. Thank you. Staff and the applicant are available for questions.
Thank you so much. You have heard the report from staff, and I'm now going to declare this public hearing open. First, are there any questions for staff from members of the council? Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2 questions. First, for the city manager, I just wanted to clarify, you made a statement that the only way we could do infrastructure was through debt financing. I just want to make sure you're aware that the state and federal government make funds available for infrastructure as well.
So I could have been misunderstood. It is not the only way we get infrastructure investments, many ways, but the primary way that a municipal government has infrastructure would be through debt financing.
Thank you. And then just for staff, since I've had so much more time on my hands, I've just been looking at these cases and trying to understand what would limit or what limitation would be in place based on our current rules for a developer that would prevent them from doing a co-housing unit that was more, so that they could create more than 5% of units on the same site that they were creating for affordable housing.
Right, so that's very site-specific. I'd have to probably defer to the applicant on that question.
And just to be even more concise, what I'm asking is whether or not we're looking at co-living in these cases as a way to make sure that there's more than 5% offered in these proffers.
So co-living is an option. It is one that is not often taken by applicants. I don't have, good information on why that is. I think that would be an interesting, focus group type panel discussion to have with our development community about why some housing choices are less utilized than others, but it is an option.
And would cottage style be an option as well?
Yes, currently, things like, people often refer to them as cottage courts. You may have heard that term. That is possible under 2 different scenarios in the current ordinance. It can be done under a PDR zoning, and it can also be done actually as a type of apartment development in any district that allows apartments.
Thank you. I just wanted to explain what lazy meant. And I think the applicant, if you wanted to offer any thoughts on that?
Sure, I'll answer that question and then go into our presentation. But the problem, Councilmember Freeman, I'll be real quick, Mayor. The problem is you have to structure it in accordance with state statutes. And the only state statute that works is North Carolina Statutes 47C, the Condominium Act. And we can all agree giving more money to lawyers is a good thing, but it's a heavy lift to set up those condominium structures to promote what we normally refer to as co-housing. So it's a very heavy legal expenditure in addition to the architectural challenges that co-housing presents. And I'll shut up. Thank you.
I appreciate that, just so that I can just make sure that I'm directing or giving some feedback for staff is to figure out what that would look like as one of the incentives as well. So as you're looking at those things, it's a way to encourage our partners to actually do that. Thank you.
We have 2 speakers who are signed up. One is the applicant, Attorney Biker, and then we have Ms. Dot Doyle. Mr. Biker?
Yep.
You have the floor at this time. I did not have any internet speakers, did I?
You are correct. There are none.
Thank you. So if there are any folks on the internet who would like to speak this matter during this portion of hearing from persons who are in here, would you please raise your remote hand? Thank you. Attorney Biker, how much time do you need?
Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, my name is Patrick Biker. I still live at 2614 Stewart Drive. I'm an attorney with Morningstar Law Group. I'm here tonight representing the Ardent Company. With me tonight is Jay Douglas, who is the executive director with Ardent, and Earl Llewellyn with Kimley Horn is our traffic engineer. Next slide, please, Brooke. This is a transformative redevelopment to replace an obsolete bottling plant with apartments, townhouses, and a grocery-anchored neighborhood retail center, supported by pedestrian connectivity and structured parking. Out of the 300,000 residents in Durham, how many of us can walk to a grocery store? My guess would be probably less than 5% of us can do that, and this project creates a new walkable destination with a grocery store for one of our well-established neighborhoods. Heck, you can walk to Bullock's Barbecue from this location as well, and you can't put a price tag on that. Now, this project, being located on the Hillsborough Road US 70 corridor, along with its associated density and mix of uses, has the potential to redefine this corridor and bring about the type of urban infill project that currently does not exist in Durham. I've been working in Durham for almost 30 years, and this is one of the few projects I have worked on that will build residential above retail. It is no secret that this is a very expensive type of construction. Next slide, please, Brooke. On account of the density and intensity of this development, all the stormwater control measures, which cost around $750,000, will be underground. This will create a dramatic improvement to the stormwater runoff from this location, since the existing buildings and parking lots do not currently have any stormwater controls. I hope you have been able to notice the numerous aesthetic and design commitments our team has worked out with the Watts Hospital Hillendale Neighborhood Association. In addition to these commitments, the development also will provide affordable home ownership and rental opportunities within this development, with income-restricted townhouses for sale and income-restricted apartments for rent. Of course, it is important to highlight how convenient this location is for transit access on Go Durham Route 11, and that bus route provides a direct 5-minute commute to Duke Hospital, our community's largest employer. Moreover, Ardent will spend approximately $500,000 to install a traffic signal at Bellevue and Hillsborough. Next slide, please, Brooke. Accordingly, this is a walkable redevelopment with a mix of uses with good transit access located on an infill redevelopment site. For all these reasons, the Planning Commission unanimously voted to recommend approval of this agenda item. In closing, I want to thank all the folks in the Watts Hospital Hillendale Neighborhood Association who met on multiple occasions with our team to work on this development. Those were very cordial meetings, and I'd be remiss if I did not thank Dot Doyle and Tom Miller for all their help with conducting these meetings over the past 11 months. All in all, I would say it was some of the most rewarding community engagement I've been a part of during my career, and accordingly, we respectfully ask for your approval. Our team will be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Biker. We now turn to Dot Doyle. Ma'am, you will have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing from me. I'm Dot Doyle. I'm Vice President of the Watts Hospital Hillendale Neighborhood Association. I live at 2311 Woodrow Street. As is the practice of my neighborhood association, when development is happening on our borders or within our neighborhood, we usually form a committee. And this committee consisted of 3 board members and 6 other neighbors who live directly adjacent to the property. So Mr. Miller and I don't live adjacent to the property. We live on the other side of Hillendale Road. But we did have the majority of our neighbors on the committee lived on those abutting streets. We worked with Mr. Douglas and his attorney, Mr. Baker. Over this time, if I had to guess, we certainly had a dozen meetings. We're a persistent group. We certainly had concerns about this development. Of particular was traffic. We believe that Hillsborough Road is, as 751 and other roads are, is a nightmare in the morning and in the evening. This is not going to help. Neighbors have a real concern about Sprunt Avenue, which is currently used as a cut-through, and again, there'll be more traffic. However, we've already begun business working with the city to try to mitigate some of those traffic concerns, and we have a verbal commitment from this developer to help us in that effort. Another concern has been stormwater runoff. We appreciate that the developer has offered or has included measures beyond the minimum. We wish he would go a little bit further, but certainly he has made a significant effort. We appreciate the buffering. We particularly appreciate that the townhomes on this property are for sale. We think that that's a useful option, and we appreciate that the buffering, those townhomes will be 3 stories. The property behind it will be 5 and sort of 6 stories. And so that 3-story part acts as a buffer and mitigates some of the height and density, which was a real concern for nearby neighbors. We do appreciate all of these concessions. We look forward to continuing to work with Mr. Douglas as we do the development to make sure that it's the least disruptive as possible to the nearby neighbors. And Jay has been very generous in his time, and I believe that he will continue to talk with us as the development goes along. So we, as a committee and as a neighborhood association, recommend that you approve this project.
All right, Ms. Doyle, I would ask you to make one correction on your card. You have it as an opponent, but I heard you just say that you are a proponent. Thank you. Those were all the speakers that I have in person, none on the internet. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? All right. At this time, I will now declare the public hearing to be closed, and this matter is back before the council. Any comments from colleagues? Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you. I appreciate Vice President of the Watts Hospital Hillsborough Association sharing that great committee structure. It's really good to have that set up where you could have the neighbors who are closest to the property and then also members who are actively engaged in those conversations, kind of supporting the developer moving forward. I would love to see something like that for other neighborhoods that aren't as organized, and just wanted to say thank you for that.
Any other comments? Councilwoman, are you raising your hand now? No. Okay. Councilwoman Jose Allen?
Just question, I think for the, just a question, is it was 10 years of affordable housing, was that?
I believe that's correct. It's what's included in the staff report. I'm afraid we've got so many commitments, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but yeah, it's what, it was certainly the best we could do financially.
Oh, okay.
Given the constraints and the expensive type of construction with structured parking and the other architectural commitments.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Council, well, I was going to turn back to Mayor Pro Tem because you're yielding.
Yes, ma'am, I'll wait.
Yielding to Councilman Williams.
Yeah, thank you. Real quick, I appreciate the community engagement. I appreciate you all coming to a solution before coming to us and asking it to be just a hard line. So I appreciate that collaboration. Also, Durham deserves nice things, and this is going to be really nice. And I think it's going to be, an attribute to our community and building our overall city character. So thank you for bringing something nice, not just a bare minimum. I know it's tough getting development, through Durham, but I think that's going to look really good. It's going to be a really good attribute to the community over there, and I foresee really good things coming. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, followed by Councilwoman Caballero.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Very quickly, I'll be supporting this project. I've made time since I got this job to actually read this stuff. It's not a recent development. And in all the years of doing that, this is one of the better projects I've seen, actually. So I'm really excited about this project. I want to thank also our friends and neighbors from Watts Hillsborough for their engagement, and hope, stay tuned as our city respects our urban growth boundary. There's going to be a lot more infill developments coming to all neighborhoods in Durham, and I'll echo what Councilmember Freeman said. I hope that, we saw the engagement from a previous neighborhood. They just went a different direction with their advocacy, but they were engaged. But I think it's a good model and it's a good practice, and that's the way we do things in Durham. I look forward to supporting this project, and I'm excited for the folk who can walk the barbecue. It's a good thing. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a question for Attorney Baker. What are the price points for the for sale product? Both the townhouse and the other, yeah.
Only the townhouses.
Only
are
the,
first.
okay, then just the townhouse.
Do we even know, Jay?
It's market rate, will depend on the ultimate size of it.
Yeah, we're so early in the process, we don't even have a ballpark for you. I'm sorry. If we did, we'd tell you, but we're still even figuring out what the footprints and the square footage will be. We don't have. Obviously, the amount of square footage drives the sale price to a large extent.
And then what are
we're
the
just
anticipated?
we're just not far enough down to give you a real.
And same with the rents, there's no anticipated.
I'm sorry?
And for the for market rent, there's not going to be, I mean, y'all also don't have an anticipated price point.
That's correct.
Oh.
Yeah, and we have no idea what structured parking is going to cost 2 years from now when we actually build it. So it's impossible to give you a number. That's a huge driver because you have to basically provide 2 parks per unit. Under today's numbers, that's $40,000, $45,000 per unit in sunk cost. I wish we could give you better numbers, but interest rates and construction costs are just so volatile right now that if we, and the other point about that is Durham Coca-Cola actually has to remain in the facility for another year, right? So we're not even going to start doing anything after they finish their year of occupancy at their current location while they build their new bottling plant in Chatham County. So that's why we haven't spent any time even coming up with ballpark numbers.
Thank you. I just wanted to get an idea. I will be
Appreciate it.
supporting the project. I just was curious, my concern is this is amazing, great job getting a very affluent neighborhood that often doesn't support development on your side. And my concern is that it's still not a large percentage, and so then is the mean going to then just make the product at the end is going to be so high, right? So that's one of my concerns.
Yeah, that is the biggest challenge in our market right now. You hit the nail on the head. So every time we make a concession on one side, it raises the price on everything else. That's generally the way it works, and it's just a really tough market to build anything right now.
Right. Well, I mean, we have a for-profit housing market. It's just how it runs. So thank you. I will be supporting it. I just
Sorry, I wish we could do a better job on answering those questions, but it'd be pure speculation.
Madam Mayor, that's all.
Thank you. I think Mayor Pro Tem, did you? Okay. Councilman.
Thank you. I think along those lines, I just wanted to make sure that I asked if there were concessions being made around LEED or green construction in that same vein.
Yeah, at this point, Councilmember Freeman, we're not able to commit to anything that would be a LEED standard for the overall project.
Thank you.
It's when you have to build structured parking, that is a really huge infrastructure undertaking that's 100% privately financed and really kind of sucks the air out of the room in terms of the overall project. Keep in mind that we have a lot of architectural details that are committed elements on this development plan that we worked out with Dot Doyle and her team.
I appreciate that. I think what I do want to note is that there are federal dollars tied to doing more green projects, and so I do want to make sure we're having that conversation across whatever departments, whether it's workforce, economic development, or planning. Like, this is a continuum, and so building affordable, but we don't have, air to breathe or water to drink is not really helpful, so we got to keep that green aspect in there. And then I just wanted to make sure I addressed, I'm often misinterpreted, And I want to clarify when I said I had more time to read and think about these things, that I was thinking outside the context of what we normally do. I always read my documentation. I don't have a problem keeping up with my readings. Thank you.
All right, colleagues. I believe that we have I closed? I haven't closed the public hearing yet. I believe that we have reached the end of our speakers on this matter, and I will now declare this public hearing to be closed. This matter is back before the council for any further comments they have before we consider the two motions that we have before us tonight. All right, seeing no questions, we will move to the considerations of our two motions. The first motion is to adopt an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance by taking property out of industrial light and establishing the same as planned development residential of 64.223 and commercial general with a graphic development plan.
Move.
Second.
Been moved by Councilman Williams and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Madam Clerk, if you will open the vote.
Corrosion.
If it's working. No, we're still not working. Okay, just trying. All right, if you would, all those in favor, if you would raise your left hand. All right, I think we have a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. The second motion for our consideration is to adopt a consistency statement as required by NCGS 160D-605.
So move.
Second.
Been moved by Councilman Williams, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor, if you would raise your left hand. I believe that we have a unanimous vote. Both motions carry. We will now turn to the last item on our agenda tonight, which will be item 20, a zoning map change 2610 South Miami Boulevard. This is a zoning hearing, and we will now, a public hearing, this is a zoning case, and we will now hear from our staff.
Mayor O'Neill, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, and honorable council members, good evening. Brooke Roper with the Planning Department. A request for a zoning map change has been received from Chester Allen of East Wake Industrial LLC for 6 parcels of land totaling 13.63 acres and located at 2610 South Miami Boulevard. The current zoning is suburban 20, residential suburban 20, commercial neighborhood, industrial light, and industrial light with a development plan. The applicant proposes to change this designation to Planned Development Residential 19.824 to allow up to 270 multifamily dwelling units, with at least 5% of the units being designated as affordable. The properties are currently designated apartment and townhouse neighborhood on the place type map. The proposed PDR 19.824 zoning is consistent with this designation. This request received a recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission on May 9th, 2023 by a vote of 8-0. Both the erosion and sediment control and phase development and tree preservation amendment will apply to this case. This means that a 10-foot no-grade setback will be required at time of site plan. Additionally, if the applicant does any mass grading, which is defined as over 4 acres, they will be required to provide a 30-foot 0.6 opacity buffer. Thank you. Staff and the applicant are available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Roper. You have heard the report from staff, and I'm now going to declare this public hearing open. First, are there any questions for staff from members of the council? All right, we have 2 persons signed up to speak to us on this item tonight. The first is the applicant, Mr. Tim Severs, and then we do have 1 person who is on the internet, Mr. David Henney, as well. Mr. Severs, we are here to receive you this evening. If you want to start off with 5 minutes.
Good evening. Tim Severs with Cunity.
Severs.
Excuse me?
Was pronouncing it correctly.
Oh,
Thank
that's
you.
all right. Thank you. Good evening, council members. Tim Severs with Cunity. I'm here tonight representing our applicant, Chester Allen, who is also with me. Again, thank you to staff for the work on this project. As staff did mention, majority of this project area is currently zoned industrial. However, this is a small 13.5-acre site that is truly too small for industrial, especially when adding in the environmental factors like your streams, wetlands, floodplains, as well as the topography restrictions. It takes this project down to approximately 10 acres of developable land. This property sat vacant for many years. It has been marketed as industrial, but the highest and best use for this truly is residential, which follows the new and now approved comprehensive plan. The adjacent industrial site has a 90,000 square foot building on it, which also sits vacant per our GIS records. Our city does not need vacant industrial land when we need housing. Our proposal this evening is to develop and follow the new comprehensive plan to create 270 apartments and provide 5% of these units as affordable dwelling units. To date, I know of no neighborhood opposition to this project. Our development plan indicates all the proposed project boundary buffers and commits to the treatment of the 100-year storm event. As staff mentioned, this project will be required to follow all the recently approved UDO text amendments for mass grading, tree coverage, silt fence, use of flocculants, larger sediment basins, etc. A traffic study was not required for this project, but there is an existing turn lane on South Miami that provides safe access into the development. Our team has committed to at least 6 EV charging stations and working with Go Durham and Go Triangle on providing a bus pullout with the shelter, if asked to do so at the time of site plan. Furthermore, this project is just around the corner from the future commuter rail stop at Ellis Road. This evening, I do encourage you to follow the path that Planning Commission provided for a unanimous vote of this project. And if you have any questions, I'm available. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We will now turn to the speaker that we have on the internet, Mr. David Henney, who is speaking to us as a proponent. If there are any other speakers on the internet at this time, if you would raise your hand as Mr. Henney comes to speak to us tonight for 3 minutes. Mr. Henney?
Madam Mayor,
can you
Mr.
hear
Henney
us?
has been unmuted. He's not responding.
Ma'am, we're texting with him right now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my apologies for that. My name is David Henney, and I'm with Orchard 2251. Our address is 9440 Enterprise Drive in Mokina, Illinois, which is a south suburb of the Chicagoland area. We are the owners of 2612 South Miami, which is about 1.25 acres with an 11,600 square foot building. It was formerly Camp Bow Wow and is being converted to Go Dog, which is a similar use for pets, boarding, exercise, etc. And this evening I'm here to support the project. We see it as continued smart growth in the corridor, and we're looking forward to being their neighbor and having them on 3 sides of our parcel. We're arguably the most impacted by what they are planning on doing, but we welcome them to the neighborhood. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Henney, for your comments tonight. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone else who's raised their virtual hand?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, I now declare the public hearing to be closed, and this matter is back before the council. Are there any comments from colleagues before our considerations of the 2 motions involved? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is my neighborhood. I literally make this turn every day, multiple times a day. I am frustrated sometimes by the traffic on Lumley's a 2-lane onto Miami. I'm frustrated by the traffic there, but I look forward to welcoming my new neighbors, including those who will be living the affordable units, because our city needs the housing, and every neighborhood is going to be impacted by this, including mine, notwithstanding where I sit. So I'm just as willing to vote for it in my neighborhood as I've done in other people's neighborhoods. I'm excited. I do want to say I'm excited about the potential bus shelter. My bus is the number 2, which from my house, it's about a 1.3-mile walk. But from there's a stop right there on T.W. Alexander in Miami near the Waffle House. which will be much more walkable from this site to them. But a bus shelter in front of the facility would be even better, more options. So that's something I hope that we will certainly lean into. I think the Planning Commission got this one right as well. So I'm going to be supporting this project. I urge my colleagues to do the same. I look forward to welcoming my new neighbors. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Are there any further comments before our considerations of the motions at hand? All right, we have two motions for our consideration. The first motion is to adopt an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance by taking property out of the residential suburban -20 commercial neighborhood. Oops, I forgot to close the hearing, didn't I?
No, I think that's the wrong one.
Didn't I forget to close the public hearing? Let me close the public hearing. Moving fast, I need to watch my little. Did I close the public hearing? Y'all help me back.
I think
What, is it flipped?
yeah, they have the motions backwards. We've been having some problems with the agenda process. So motion number 2 is actually the first motion. Oh, yours is right.
No, mine is right. I think. Okay, yours is flip? Okay, so we're back to number 1. And I did close the public hearing, right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, so motion number 1, to adopt an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance by taking property out of the residential suburban -20 commercial neighborhood, industrial light, and industrial light with a development plan and establishing the same as planned development residential 19.824.
Moved as read.
Second?
Second?
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilwoman Johnson. All those in favor, if you would raise your left hand. I think we have a unanimous vote on that motion. Our second motion is to adopt a consistency statement as required by NCGS 160D-605.
Move to adopt consistency.
Second.
Been moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilwoman Johnson. All those in favor, if you would raise your left hand. We have a unanimous vote. Those motions have passed. We will now turn to other matters.
We have one more motion that's not included.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
My apologies. We realize that this is an unusual zoning. It actually has a utility extension agreement, and there should have been a third motion for that. So our apologies for that. It is included in your packet, but we would request that you approve the utility extension agreement for this project as well.
Sure. The third motion for our consideration is to authorize the city manager to enter into a utility extension agreement with East Wake Industrial LLC, Inc.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Councilman Williams, seconded by Councilwoman Johnson. All those in favor, if you would raise your left hand. We have 5, Councilwoman Hosingham, 6, Councilwoman Hosingham, raise your hand so I can put it in the record. Councilwoman Johnson, oh, you did raise your hand. You raising your hand? Okay. We have a unanimous vote. Thank you so much for that. We now turn to other matters. We have with us this evening Ms. Marie Hill Faison, who has signed up to speak to us for an item not on the agenda. I believe that our clerk has told her that normally we will hear citizen matters at 1 o'clock on Thursdays, but since she's here tonight and has stayed to the end, if you all would allow her to speak with us for 3 minutes, she is speaking to us on Go Durham Access Inclusion for Bonus. Any objections to her being heard this evening? All right, this is an exception.
I appreciate it. My name is Marie Hill Faison, 202 West Enterprise Street. And for 22 years, I've been working for Go Durham Access. I have the hat on. We drive city vehicles, and we also work in a city building. So, but we're not the city. But I represent Teamsters Local 391, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to stand with the sanitation workers and the city workers and the fire. But we are essential workers, and we worked all the way through COVID. And I believe, you know, I'm speaking for our group that we deserve to be included in the bonus. And I mean, I've heard the dialogue here, and it's very vicious sometimes. But I feel like I need to address that because there have been previous times where we were included in bonuses. And I would like for you to revisit that and include Go Durham with the city bonuses. And that's why I came tonight, but I didn't know the protocol for when you can speak and when you can't. So I just felt like this is the city I reside in, and I feel like I should have a voice in some of this because I stayed to the end because I'm interested in what goes on in our city and what happens. And I vote on primaries and I vote on the regular vote, so I'm very active. And I would just appreciate it if you would consider that because it is an equity issue too. And I agree with Halsey Hyman, Monique, and I think that's very important, the work that we do, and it doesn't get recognized. And so I felt it was for me to come to speak for the voiceless. You see, I don't have anybody with me because we're working. The only reason I came tonight was because they removed me from the road because of DOT issues. And I plan on probably grieving that too, but you know, it's a process. And I think that city workers are, I don't know what city, I know I see the fire department, the police department, and the buses out there when nobody else is out there. And we're out there running around, taking people for dialysis treatments, cancer treatments. People that are healthy don't think about that. People that aren't disabled don't think about that. But you need to think about it, you know, because one day everybody up there is going to get old. And if you can't drive and they tell you you can't drive, you'll be riding access. You might not believe it now, but you'll be glad that that service exists, you know. And the city is dead without transportation, and that transportation needs to go throughout the city. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for coming tonight and staying with us, Ms. Faison.
I really enjoyed it. It was enlightening, and my mother's name was Elaine, so I feel she was here.
All right, thank you so much, everybody. Any other issues to come before the council? Councilwoman Friedman, and if you all would pass your clickers down as well while she's speaking.
Thank you. I did want to thank Ms. Faison for bringing that forward and just acknowledge it. I think we're getting numbers back, and I'm not sure if that was included in the request. Well, I know it wasn't included in the request, but I do want to make sure that we do have support to make sure that it is included in the request coming up so that we have numbers for that, what that would cost.
I am not certain I understand what request you're referencing.
For Go Durham access to be included in the bonus. Was that?
So Go Durham access employees are not City of Durham employees, as Ms. Faison, yes.
In our contract that can go forward.
And
so we have been included in the past, and I would like for you to consider us for this.
So what I will do is I will provide information.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And then I just wanted, I wanted to make sure that I did read, well, two other things. I did want to find out what's going on with the DTB-8 antenna because we're still not broadcasting and trying to figure out what we need to do, whether it's pushing it on Spectrum or funding it and covering it and suing it, whatever we need to do, the station needs to get back up.
So we have, we've escalated the request. It is not a funding issue. It is an equipment issue. And we do expect it to be, it's going to be some time. I got information tonight that it will likely be January before it is back on.
Okay. And then I just need to make a request for excused absence for Thursday. I want to make sure I'm prepared. What is that, the 18th?
What date is that?
On October 19th, Thursday.
I could entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Been moved by, it's been moved by Councilwoman Caballero, seconded by Councilman Williams. All those in favor, if you would sign by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed have the same right. Hearing none, you are excused.
Thank you. And just reading, update the Durham City Council SCAD Task Force special meetings, public meeting notice. The Durham City Council has approved the formation for Affordable Development Task Force to convene a series of 3 special meetings. The purpose of this is to engage participants in community forums on the proposed SCAD amendments. The location is City Hall 101 City Hall Plaza, second floor, committee room, Tuesday, October the 24th, 2023, 1 to 3 p.m., Wednesday, October the 25th, 2023, 5 to 7 p.m., and Friday, October the 27th, 2023, 5 to 7 p.m. Councilmember, myself, Councilmember Freeman, and Councilmember Williams will lead the task force. Local academic subject matter experts include Professor Dr. Danielle Spurlock from UNC Chapel Hill and Professor Dr. K. Jowers Esquire, Duke University. Due to technology and limitations in the committee room, virtual speakers are not possible. I'm going to repeat that. Virtual speakers will not be possible to hear in the room. Limited space is available for in-person. Public comments will be available in the committee room. Written public comments will be accepted at any time at city.clerk@durhamnc.gov. SCAD task force meetings will be live streamed on YouTube. Be advised that a quorum of the Durham City Council may attend the SCAD task force special meetings. However, no official business will be transacted and no actions will be taken by the council. If you have questions about the special meetings, please contact City Clerk Diana Schreiber and at 919-560-4166 at extension 12266. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I did need to add 2 members to the task force, which include Ms. Charlotta Burris and Johnetta Austin.
Thank you, Councilwoman Freeman, and I also want to let you all know that I will not be available on Tuesday, October 24th. Mayor Pro Tem, if you could be there to help facilitate, if you can possibly, that meeting is going to be at 1 o'clock. I will be at the White House with your president.
I'll check that date. There's at least, I know one date I won't be able to make it.
All right, so I won't be there that day. Okay. All right, everybody, unless there's anything else, we will adjourn at 10:39 on October 16th. Bull City Strong. Happy homecoming, Hillside. Shout out to class of 1980. Happy Lanes Day. I forgot about that one. All right.
You ate a lot of those chickpea puffs.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And look, I appreciate it. And you guys, we have a community meeting. Just if you ever want to, just invite me out. Because there's. I didn't know you were my. Oh, yeah. Oh, no worries. Because there's, and for the record, my commentary wasn't specifically to you all. It's more so in general, just because we hear a lot of the same thing. But what's happening is it's so nuanced that folks don't really understand the whole picture. And there's.
I mean, I heard you say the facts matter, and the narrative often doesn't correspond with the facts. I hear you.
Yeah, it's really complicated, but at the same time, you know, like you all organize like that tree preservation.
I hear you, but I will tell you the experience of a lot of my neighbors is it won't make a difference, especially when they come to a planning commission meeting and it's 9-0, regardless of what they say. foregone conclusion. And unfortunately, that drives people away from engagement.
So, for example, that, Yeah.